Damn, I am good.
Hello, everyone. Welcome. It is Thursday night. It's time for Revolutionary Change. I'm Jen Perelman.
I'm Peter Hager, and that I cannot believe I did that in 5 minutes. But hey.
Okay, Peter. I, in the past hour, have set up a satellite, turned on power, figured out the computer, hooked up the air conditioning, undid my camper, unpacked the truck, took Lou to see the cows, and fed my dog.
Well, you took Lou to see the cows. I mean, that's definitely the most important part.
Yeah, well, there's cows. And so I had to walk over so Lou could see the cow. She was very not impressed with the cows.
I was going to say, she doesn't seem like the type that would care very much. But
she didn't, but you would have loved to see her here. And as soon as I put her down on Mo's property in the grass, she just started doing that frolicking and smile. Like she had that big open mouth smile. She was so happy.
Bopping up and down, very, very happy.
And
but
the grass is deep.
But you got to keep a close eye on her at all times.
Oh no, she's got GPS on her now. She got GPS on her. I'm tracking her ass.
I don't blame you.
So I am definitely sweaty, hot mess today.
Well, I've been in Jersey for the day, and it's always nice to come back. And maybe Reese might make an appearance at some point. And let Reese and Lou see each other. That's always nice.
Lou doesn't ever look at the screens, though. So, like, she won't notice. No.
Well, not as right now, but that could always change.
Yeah. So, this is our Starlink, where I am on satellite.
Well, it seems like a very clear picture. And everything is coming in pretty clearly. So all is good so far. We'll see if that holds. Do you want to let people know whose satellite system you're using?
No.
Let's just say it's somebody that Jen doesn't think very highly of. I don't either, but he's clearly proven to be one step ahead of most for now.
Well, if there was another thing, I would use it. And it's just, it's needed here. Like if I were, the last time I did the show from here, I was on my hotspot and it like burned out my phone. It wasn't good.
True.
And there is no life. I am in the middle of nowhere outside of Baconton, Georgia. And Baconton, I'm on Mo's property.
Is Mo there with you already or no?
No, she's going to meet us when I come back down. She'll meet us on my way back. This is now my third time on Mo's property, and she's never been here when I've been here. But yeah, and it's, we're roughing it here. I am not kidding. There's no functioning toilet. There's no functioning water in this cabin right now. Well, and my camper isn't hooked up. We're roughing it.
Well, if anybody knows what it's like to go without toilet, trust me, you don't want to go if there's an outhouse or you have to go out in the,
No, there's a toilet, but you have to be able to pour water, flush the toilet because we can't turn the water on because there's a leak in the pipe. It's a whole thing. But we're only here one night. So the next time you see me, I will not be here.
Fair enough. Well, we're obviously going to save the Hind Rajab story for our esteemed guest, Dr. Feroze Sidhwa, who will be coming on at the top of the hour. We obviously have a lot of things that we do have to cover. But I think when you consider all the things that are going on right now, and we obviously, the main story of the night, which we will cover after our esteemed guest is here, is this, as Jen likes to put it, infestation of Israelis that are now finding their way into Cyprus. And they're going to take over that country. That's basically.
Honestly, I feel so bad. I feel so bad for Cypriots. Cypriots? I think it's Cypriot. I think it's Cypriots.
The problem, though, is that they are already staking their claim. And what's going to happen, unfortunately, with the Israelis is that they're just going to bribe the entire government. And that's how they're going to be able to get their people there. I am pretty sure that that is the most likely scenario. It is an unfortunate reality in terms of how things work. But I don't really see any other scenario. And we are going to dive intensively into that as we go forward. But I will tell you, Jen, there's a lot of places that we could kick off the night. And I've thought long and hard about where it makes the most sense. Do you want full-on rage or laughable rage on the rage meter?
Let's start with laughable rage, okay? Let's start with something entertaining. I mean, what is laughable rage?
Oh, you'll get a kick out of it. This one I know you'll enjoy. So we have obviously made it very clear on our channel that if you are going to be a part of the solution, you cannot and must not support any capacity within the problem sphere. And we know who those people are that are constantly making things worse for everyone else. However, it does seem that there is this sort of collective effort across the board to call out anyone and everyone on both sides of the grifting aisle when it comes to, you're messing with your picture now, Jen.
I need to go outside for a second.
Okay. Do you want me to hold things down?
I'll be right back. Yeah, I'll be right back.
Okay. So we obviously are going to talk about a lot this evening, but you know what? While Jen is gone, I am going to warm things up for you guys because our good friend Willie Bragg has already dropped a super chat. Make sure, if you are not currently contributing to our channel, if you are capable of doing so, please go over to patreon.com/revolutionary change for as little as $5 a month. You can become a supporter of our small but mighty and growing channel. We just passed 53.5 thousand live or subscribers, and obviously our channel that is growing more and more. We always appreciate the super chats, and if you choose to contribute on YouTube, we certainly appreciate it as well. I believe, Colin, if you're there, I could have sworn that I saw a message earlier today, but for some reason it wasn't popping up earlier. I think we have 2 new YouTube members. At least that's what it looked like earlier. Did I missee that?
Yes. It just means they weren't in this chat when they became a member, but there was 2 new members. Yeah.
All right. Do we have those names? We'll give a shout out to them real quick.
Give me one sec. Let me pull it up here.
I saw it earlier this afternoon. I was interested as to why it would show up then, but not show up now. So that's always interesting.
Do.
Should make these lights brighter.
It's saying I'm obstructed, but I went out there and I am not obstructed.
It was new member Jonathan and first gen trucker.
Awesome. Well, new member Jonathan, new member first gen trucker. Really happy to have you here. And of course, Willie Bragg with the $5. The Willie Bragg Show. Guys, if you are not subscribed to Willie Bragg on YouTube, please make sure that you do. David Pakman became one of those vanilla shit libs that bashes the real left by claiming he is the real left. Not quite Dave Rubin, but Bill Maher. Now, I don't know, man. I think he's just as bad as anybody. And we're going to get to him in a minute. You'll see. And Kenman with the 279. Israelis already occupied Los Angeles. Look, the Israelis have already occupied Miami. Yes, they're occupying LA. Maybe there's a few other spots in between, like New York. But God willing, gosh willing, it won't last for too long. Speaking of Zion Nazis, Jen, is everything good on your end?
I think, look, it says there's obstruction, but I'm aligned, and I can't remove the house or the trees or anything. So I'm doing the best I can. It needs it to be completely open, and there's trees in places. So, it is what it is.
Well, here's hoping for the best. You would think that a lesson would have been learned regarding being caught with your hand in the corporate money cookie jar. But there is a particular content creating shitlib out there that just does not want to let this go and feels that he has to continue to not only thumb the eye of progressive populist political supporters, he is also somebody who feels that he has to let everyone know that he's left the left. Newsflash, David Pakman, you were never on the left to begin with, but
no.
Here's what he had to say, Jen.
Not changed in terms of my views. What has changed, as I pointed out yesterday, is I no longer believe we are all part of the same movement.
I don't know what movement you were a part of, but I sure as shit was never a part of whatever movement you're in. As I like to point out to everyone who has ever listened to this sort of little prick, this guy back in 2016, 2017 was shouting from the rooftops that we needed regime change in Venezuela and to remove Maduro and put in puppet President Guaido. He was calling him President Guaido on his channel at great frequency. Guys, this is 8 years ago. I don't know how anyone in that moment thought that it made sense to listen to this guy for even a second thereafter. Not even addressing Israel. I'm just talking about Venezuela. I'm not even addressing Ukraine. I am talking about the fact that this guy showed his true stripes almost a decade ago, and how people are still listening to him now is mind-boggling to me. But you know what we did learn regarding this chorus, content creating, what you would call incubator organization that Brian Tyler Cohen was a part of? This was a algorithm manipulated group of people that were getting millions upon millions of subscribers because they're part of the club. They are doing the type of content creation that is considered acceptable by the establishment. I think it's safe to say that you and I do not do the type of content that would be acceptable by the establishment to put us on the algorithm. Just a thought.
Yeah, well, that was never an option for us. But we never started this to be a livelihood or a business. Like, we started this because we had a platform from the first campaign, and I didn't want to throw that away. I'm like, okay, we can use this to build something, that's a part of a mission. So
Great.
We were never in this for a business. That's the difference. Although it would be nice to be paid.
Yes, well, we're working towards that. Guys, 154 of you are watching so far. If you haven't smashed that like button, please make sure that you do. Please make sure you subscribe. And please make sure that you share.
The governance-focused, big tent, win elections and pass laws left. That's where I am.
Go away. He reminds me of the guy from Blue's Clues. Remember Steve from Blue's Clues? He just doesn't even look real. He looks like he's doing some kids TV show. I honestly, and I am loath to say this because this is not something that I often say, but you do. He is just so disgustingly beta to me that it's just so gross. And I don't normally think that. I don't normally say that about men. That's a you thing to say. This could be the most beta man that I see regularly in content. Well, him and Shapiro.
Yeah, I can't decide who cries more before they go to sleep at night. Is it Shapiro or is it Pakman?
I'm sorry, Matt. I wasn't trying to insult Steve. I'm sorry. I didn't have a problem with Steve from Blue's Clues.
Well, and guys, could we just kind of get this thing trending now already? I mean, I think it's inevitable that we get there. But could we start calling him David A. Pakman? Because it just sticks. It just works. David A. Pakman. Am I right? I think so.
And then there's this purity test left. The ones who don't really care if we lose and sometimes seem to like it so they can say, I told you so.
The big difference between that sentiment and the one that exists within the populist right movement, like libertarianism and even MAGA to an extent, their top priority is not winning elections. Their top priority is winning the issues, winning the narrative and winning over the populace of the country, which is what the left is supposed to be. But you see, to shitbags like this guy, the only thing that really matters to him is whether or not the election is being won. Because for him, it's a job. It's, how do I make this a career? That's his priority. His priority is not, how do we figure out how to improve populist left working class priorities in this country? When you have 3 million plus subscribers, that's not your priority. Your priority is your wallet. And he's got a big one. And we've all seen how he reacts when even a slither of that wallet is threatened. And we've seen it. Jen, good?
Yeah, I think so. It keeps saying I have an obstruction, but I don't see what it is. And I don't know what to do.
If there's anything bad on your end, I will let you know if I see it here. But right now you look good. So all is good for now. Let's hope.
I was gone
As
for a while.
long as they feel morally untainted. They treat compromise as corruption. They think we need a better media ecosystem must mean install CIA-approved thought leaders or something like that. So maybe we were never really part of the same movement.
You are bought by corporate special interests. Has anybody seen the rap sheet of the people he takes sponsorship money from? I mean, for goodness sake, he takes money from Fume, one of those jewel tobacco companies that's ruining kids' lives.
That's disgusting. That's very un-Steve from Blue's Clues.
Yeah, I would agree. Well, hey, he's got a nice velvety purple shirt on, and he probably, feels all nice and tidy at night when he goes to sleep. He's happy. He's rolling in that cashola.
I've been red-pilled about anything, maybe it's that. We overlapped when convenient, and that was it. But I'm not getting red pilled. I'm done pretending that everyone with a left-wing label is on the same page. You can stand for progress in a lot of different ways. You can want change without torching everyone who's only 98% on your side. But no, I am not having a political awakening. I am not the next Dave Rubin. None of that is happening.
No, actually, you're worse. You're just worse. That's what you are. That's smart.
I don't know why we're even talking about him. Like, I hate talking about these people so much. Like, this is the kind of stuff that I really think is a very pontificating with Pete thing.
Well, the reason I had to bring him up tonight is because he really is, he's spiraling. Like, he really is spiraling, and he can say, oh, I'm leaving the left. You were never on it to begin with. And frankly, I hope it is hurting his bottom line. I don't wish typically ill will on anybody. But for somebody like him, for somebody who has, you know, somebody brought it up that I noticed on social media.
That's what I think. This is my opinion. Yes. Yes. I do not like talking about the content creators. I friggin' hate it, but here we are.
Oh, well, he's not long for the top of the world in content creation anyway. So I'm not entirely worried about it, nor should anybody else be. He's certainly made himself quite the grift, but maybe all good grifts come to an end. One can only hope on that. Yeah. But in terms of what I think is more of the rage-o-meter, in terms of what we've noticed has been happening as of late.
You're like, I can't get that angry about any of that. I don't care.
I'm not talking about that. I'm not talking about that. So Monday was Labor Day. We did not do a labor segment, but there wasn't really anything labor related that I think we could have covered. However, the content creation that comes directly from what I deem to be the best of the Democratic Party adjacent, nonprofit groups is definitely More Perfect Union. And they did a really good job of covering the insider trading that is going on a regular basis on Capitol Hill, but to the extent that I don't think most people truly understand how bad it really is and why it's not changing as we speak. But we obviously have to do everything in our capacity to try to make that change. So if you haven't seen this clip, it's been shortened, but it'll give you a pretty good idea of who the usual suspects are, but also some of the other ones that are at the top of the list right now. So brace yourself. It's going to get ugly.
Money in an index fund, you'll often get about 10% a year. So Warren Buffett nearly doubles that. Not bad. But there is one group that beats the market by even wider margins, taking in massive profits. They aren't math geniuses, they aren't experts in statistics, and they aren't using an algorithm developed by some tech startup. And they don't work at a stock exchange on the trading floor. They work here, on the floor of Congress. They're your elected representatives.
Oh,
They
Byron
are
Donald
beating
is
the
about to
market
be
by margins that
Byron
make
Donald
even
is about
Warren
to be our
Buffett look
governor.
like an absolute chump.
All right.
We get questions from you, our audience, quite a lot about how members of Congress get so rich. After all, they have a fixed salary. They can't have a bunch of income on the side or just have another job. Turns out, the answer is a little boring. It's mostly be rich already before you're elected to Congress, have a rich spouse, and maybe write a weird book. But there's another big part of the answer, and it's all of this. Play the stock market and do it better than almost anyone
we're going to
else.
see the top
So
thing.
how are members of Congress doing this? Did we accidentally elect generationally talented stock traders? Or is something else happening here beneath the surface? This is a look at how members of Congress get rich through some of their most suspicious
Oh, see that? Yeah, there's one of your worst
I try not to
offenders.
look at that. I try not to look at that.
recent stock trades and what, if anything, can be done about it.
And the reason for all of this is that, quite frankly, members of this body are privy to information that the normal person just is not.
So again, we have plenty of protections. We have the disclosure. This is a completely unnecessary piece of legislation.
That is
Can you
Senator
just
Ron.
look at this? Can you respond to this person? Because shut up and go away. Like, seriously,
If you are a cuckold for David Pakman,
then that's where you should be watching.
Go to his channel. If you are so concerned, and remember, David Pakman has over 3 million subscribers. We have over 50,000, and you think you're coming here to troll us? Like, you're supposed to punch up You're supposed to punch up at people who actually have a large following. We, on the other hand, are growing. And if we are in the thought, remember, Charlie Kirk put a clip of me in one of his videos. Charlie fucking Kirk put me in one of his videos. And I'm thinking,
this guy thinks that we're jealous of David. I assure you, none of us are jealous of David Pakman. We just want him to go away because he's garbage.
Seriously.
We signed up for this job. We knew what the pay was. It isn't a, we're going to pay you this much plus corruption.
I don't know how many people in the audience, how many of you don't want to make money?
Ah!
Anybody want to be poor?
I want this. That is not somebody that should be like. That's
he's
Voldemort.
being honest. He's being honest about the fact that he doesn't want to be poor. So he decided that in order to get rich, he was willing to kill a lot of people, which he did. He is the Medicare fraudster to end all Medicare fraudsters.
Yeah.
And he is, at a time or another, the richest person in Congress.
He's disgusting to me. He's disgusting.
Beyond
yes,
disgusting.
Rick Scott should be in prison. Exactly.
I think he should be a lot worse than that, but that's my opinion. Here's a guy who says, I don't, do you want to be poor? I don't. Correct. You don't want to be poor. So you are willing.
Be poor? Who wants to be poor? Like, that's a stupid thing to say.
A lot of stupid things come out of his mouth.
I'm going to take you back to February 2020. At this point, nobody in the public really knows just how bad this whole coronavirus thing would be.
February 2020.
But if you were a U.S. senator who sits on the Intelligence and Health Committees, like Richard Burr, who gets confidential briefings on threats to the U.S., you might have a pretty good idea of what's coming. Publicly, at the time, Burr seemed confident that this COVID situation wasn't that bad, that the U.S. was ready. On February 7th, he wrote an op-ed for Fox News saying just as much. But on February 13th, just a day later, Burr was dumping his entire portfolio, selling off a ton of stock, potentially up to $1.7 million worth. But here's the thing, he did all of this while the market was at an all-time high. Why would he do that? Maybe because he was receiving closed-door briefings telling him that this virus was going to be bad for the US economy in a big way. Soon after, the market did crash, the economy did shut down, and Senator Burr miraculously dodged the financial ruin that many of his constituents felt at that time. Now, if you're thinking to yourself, that sounds like it should be illegal, I had the same reaction, and you would be right, sort of. You see, in the United States, we have laws against what we call insider trading.
The buying and selling of stock by corporate insiders who have access to non-public information that could affect the stock price can be a criminal offense.
Now, I don't work for the FBI, but to my untrained eye, this looks a lot like a politician using his insider knowledge to dump his entire stock portfolio before a market crash, all while assuring the public that everything was okay.
Gotta love a guy who throws that sport jacket over the shoulder. Am I right? He's happy.
There's nothing cool about that.
I would say that there's nothing cool about anybody who breaks the law, but especially when it's our federally elected officials.
Assuring the public that everything was okay. Apparently, the FBI disagreed because after conducting an investigation, all charges were dropped against Senator Burr and they found no wrongdoing.
Remember, the reason that nothing ever happens is because he's not the only one. This is a feature. It's not an anomaly. If one goes down, they're all going to take each other down, which is why the ones.
Right.
Yeah. Well, that's why
we won't vote on this.
Correct. Which is why ones, like Thomas Massie truly do stand out from the pack. That's the difference. He is people like him are the difference.
Dropped against Senator Burr and they found no wrongdoing. He got off completely scot-free, which is shocking to me. We have a specific law against insider trading just for members of Congress. It's called the Stock Act. Stop trading on congressional knowledge. Cute, I know. But to me, this law looks like it doesn't work at all. Because here's the thing, Senator Burr, he's not the exception. To better understand how widespread this issue is, and if one party is doing it more than the other, I sat down with Chris Kardatsky of Quiver Quantitative, a company that uses alternative public data sources to help retail investors make better decisions. Because apparently, one of the best ways to do that is by tracking members of Congress.
Last year, we launched a portfolio on an app called Autopilot. Every month, it buys stock in the companies that are being bought the most by members of Congress. And since we've launched that last year, it's risen around 33%, I believe, whereas
they think that there's like acceptable levels of insider trading, right? Like it isn't black or white. There's a very gray area where it's acceptable or for a certain amount, or it's really amazing. Like they sit there and like they're arguing about how many angels can dance on the head of a pin. It's really bizarre.
We've reached a point where the corruption is just in your face, and what level of it are you willing to accept? That's basically what they're saying. Their performance is a 37% net gain. I mean, if you get an over 12% net gain, that's considered a substantial win. But in this case, they're just admitting that, yeah, we rigged the game. And rather than fix it, we're now just going to allow other people to go out there and trade on it. But the problem that you have to remember, ladies and gentlemen, is that 93% of the stocks are owned by 10% of the investors. This is not some club that you can just get into and everybody can just buy and get wealthy. It's for a very select group of people. That's the reality.
The market is up around 24% over the same time frame.
Is either political party worse on this? Does one party trade more than the other one?
We haven't seen any sort of lean one way or the other. We see suspicious trades on both sides of the aisle.
Are there any other examples of trades that you've been watching recently that you could walk us through?
Back in November, we noticed Representative Debbie Wasserman Schultz buying stock in a company called Viasat. And it really caught our eye because it was the first time we'd seen her buy the stock. And it was the first time we'd seen any member buy the stock.
Okay, so Debbie Wasserman Schultz sits on the Appropriations Committee and the Subcommittee on Military Construction.
You know, they used to do these, remember they used to do the cartoons of the big fat pigs, and they had like the top hats on and the jackets, and they were scratching each other and handing each other money, you know?
No, I don't, but I'll believe you.
Well, remember how there used to be that cartoon about how a bill gets made?
Yes, that's Schoolhouse Rock.
Well, so Schoolhouse Rock essentially made a parody of that, only in this case, it showed the corruption side of things. And so basically what you're seeing here is this is how the corruption works, which is even more amazing because they say that Debbie Wasserman Schultz's net worth is $528,000. Ladies and gentlemen, Debbie Wasserman Schultz lives in a multi-million-dollar house in Weston, Florida. Like that alone shows how
her house is probably like 1.5 million, 1.7 million. It's probably something like that.
But she has at least 3 houses.
Yeah.
She has a house in DC, she has a house in Weston, and then she has some getaway vacation home in New Hampshire.
Mm-hmm.
That's probably in excess of probably close to 4 to 5 million right there. So the dishonesty about her income is also something that I've always found quite perplexing.
Yeah. And the other thing is she does trades through her husband and her children.
Of course. But
so
you know
a lot of her worth is not trackable.
Of course. You know what? And you'll find out that Steve Schultz, who's her husband, is probably worth millions upon millions of dollars. But you know who else trades through their spouses? Ro Khanna trades through his wife. Marjorie Taylor Greene trades through her CPA or whatever. It's bad.
So that's the problem with, even if you pass some law, even if they voted on it and they said Congress members and their families can't trade stock while they're sitting in Congress. Let's say they did that. They'll just find go around. They'll just find an attorney or a friend or someone to do it for them. You know, so it's a pickle, because even if they decided that they wanted to stop it, I don't see how you could really enforce it.
I just think we're getting to a point where people are just collectively losing faith in the system. And that is a very dangerous
They should.
Well, yes, but here's the problem is that once you lose faith in it, you will not get it back. No one will trust this system again. These guys.
Well, wait, we don't need to. This system needs to end. So why would we trust it?
That's true. But Wasserman Schultz, like Trump, makes it very easy to say, whatever this system is that these types of people are benefiting from, I don't want any part of it. Just like David Pakman says, well, I'm not a part of this team anymore. You were never welcomed on the team in the first place.
David Pakman, you were never on the team.
No,
never.
You're just Pakman. A Pakman, guys. Can we just keep that going? Whether you want to believe it or not, you're just as much of a scumbag as Debbie Wasserman Schultz is. I know you don't think that you are in your own deluded mind, but trust me when I tell you, you're just as bad.
That's not a good look right off the bat.
And then in December, it was announced that Viasat would be awarded part of like a $4 billion NASA contract.
If you want to know what the definition of insider trading is, and I mean you are guilty of sin, you go to federal prison, this is a classic case of this. This is undeniable knowledge that Wasserman Schultz, who was one of the first people, forget Congress, was one of the first people to buy stock in this project that now has a right out of the gate, after its first public offering, is sitting at a valuation of $4.8 billion. I guarantee you she made more money than they're listing her net worth at.
The problem is, and I know this because I live in South Florida, unfortunately, our voters that vote, they don't care. They don't care. You could show them the proof about all of this stuff and they'll still vote for her. And at this point, yeah, I am getting out of South Florida. And as far as I'm concerned, that district deserves her. They do. They deserve her. And the people who don't, they don't vote. So they deserve her.
I do have somebody in mind who I think would actually be a very formidable opponent to her, but he's not ready yet. So
it doesn't matter. Until that district switches red, she's not going anywhere.
Well, maybe that's what will happen, but time will tell.
It's not ready yet.
Yeah. Contract, and the stock just rose.
Looks like they got another big contract.
I just want to show that graphic.
It was the first time we'd seen her buy the stock. It was the
Just
first
watch
time we'd
this
seen any member buy the stock. And then in December, it was announced that Viasat would be awarded part of like a $4 billion NASA contract, and the stock just rose.
This is where she bought the stock.
How can people not want, she needs to learn Mangione monetary theory.
Well, that's probably the only way she's going anyway. But imagine this. Imagine buying the stock at about $11 a share. And right now it sits at about 28. So she
and yet she's only worth $500,000.
Yeah, she triple X'd her money. Like you said, and as Calling Larry says,
yes,
that's what's coming.
They give you no other choice.
Ari Schaefer said it. How else do you want this to go? No one is listening.
No.
JFK said, if you make peaceful revolution impossible, violent revolution becomes inevitable. And this is the type of stuff that is going to get people to do something very drastic that they normally wouldn't do, but feel like they have no other choice.
Looks like they got another big contract also with the Department of Defense right after the NASA contract.
A couple years ago, we saw Representative Susie Lee buy stock in a company called Rheinmetall. Which is a German defense contractor, which, I mean, that rang alarm bells for us because it's like it was a stock we hadn't really seen any members trade before, and obviously very tied into U.S. defense policy.
It's like they're doing a lot of work with the Army lately. Tank modernization, I bet there's big money in that.
Susie Lee sat on a committee on military construction, and since then the stock's risen like, I think, 250%.
I do not understand how this is just acceptable. Other than we're lawless. We are completely lawless.
We are.
I'm telling you, it's like, that's why they're doubling down on policing, because they know that we are a rogue nation. So if we're not going to follow international law, and we have leadership that has no respect for law and no respect for any sort of norms of what is acceptable, then the next thing is for people to get out of control, which is why we have over 100 cop cities being created. They see that this is coming.
Yeah, and they're feeling a lot more emboldened to want to do something about it. And I think that that in itself is a huge part of why we're heading in this direction, which is also why this is a perfect transition into Zohran Mamdani, who we haven't talked about in a few weeks, but now is a very relevant time to bring him up. Why? Because he did a big interview on the Breakfast Club. He also just dropped a phenomenal new ad. But the bigger story here, which is the real reason we were talking about him tonight, is that there is a serious colluding story that is brewing right now regarding how is Trump going to help Andrew Cuomo. So, Colin, if you could please pull up that story. I think it's very important that people understand exactly why this is happening. When you think about I know you don't think it's going to matter, and maybe it won't. Maybe it's possible that it won't make any difference.
I don't think it will.
Donald Trump and Eric Adams' teams are reported to be conspiring in a bizarre, corrupt effort to elect Andrew Cuomo as mayor of New York City. And so, what is the gist of this particular story? Well, it turns out that between current mayor Eric Adams and Republican candidate Curtis Silva, the Trump administration is making a move to basically give these two men jobs in his administration, and in return, they not only drop out of the mayoral race, they endorse Cuomo as well.
Right.
And their calculus is, will that be enough to push Cuomo over the top against Mamdani? You don't think so?
No.
I would probably be inclined to agree. But
it's just going to fall flat. It's not going to work. And I also think that anybody who's on the fence, let's say, well, I don't know how you could be, but anybody who is on the fence, sure, and they're watching that the supposed Democratic candidates are being supported by the Republican president, like, it's not a good look. And so I just think that makes it people more inclined to vote for the actual Democrat.
Yeah, but you know what, though? As much as I would normally agree with you under those circumstances, you have to remember that when push comes to shove, and I think New York City is a great example of this, it's all about class war. And for them, if you're talking about electing a mayor that might legitimately raise the taxes on the top 1% of the population in New York City, they're going to fight back. They just are.
But I don't think it's going to matter. The margin that he won by is too big for them to, and his momentum is too strong. I don't think it'll work.
I think you're right. I think it also, again, we have addressed this before, and I still think that this is maybe the biggest part of the story. There is such thing as being a sore loser in the minds of the average voter. It's one thing if you're getting behind one of the candidates who just happens to be in the general election. You're picking the candidate that lost the primary, now is playing the spoiler in the general election as an independent, and now you're throwing all your weight behind that guy. They're all going to be like, wait, we already voted against you. Why are you running again?
They're replaying Buffalo. They're replaying Buffalo, but the problem is Mamdani's too popular. And it's too public, and it's not going to work. And I just don't think it'll work. And Cuomo is so disliked.
He really is. And he's only making it worse. But I think ads like this are why they are so scared, but also why Zohran is very likely to win in just a couple of months.
Be honest with the American people about what's going on here. This is political theater.
Oh, that's the wrong one. Colin, you had that written as Zohran. You gotta, that's written as Zohran ad. Keep that in mind. So I don't know why that came up as that, but that's for later. This is the one. I apologize. So Zohran went on with Charlemagne the God on the Breakfast Club, and the question of Israel was brought up. And here's what he had to say.
He said if you're elected mayor, Israel wouldn't let you in. And you mentioned some legislation, but would that legislation apply to you if you're actually mayor?
We've seen elected officials, even congresspeople of this country, not be allowed into the state of Israel. And my point was, I've been asked this question many times, and I've said directly that I believe one need not visit Israel to stand up for Jewish New Yorkers.
I mean, isn't
the majority of Jews in his districts or in the city support him?
Yeah. Frankly, there's probably a lot of them that do support him, but also support Israel. And they just think, well, you know what, maybe we need to take a step back because you have, again, your classic saying is pigs get fat, hogs get slaughtered. Now, there are probably a lot of Jews in New York City that support the state of Israel, but they know that we may have reached a point of no return. And if we do not take a significant step backwards, we're going to lose the entire state altogether. We'll never be able to take our vacations overseas into Tel Aviv and Jerusalem. Like those days will end. It's going to become a pluralist state. And if there's a place that could change the narrative in a significant way, I think New York obviously would be ground zero to do it. It's not going to happen in South Florida. Like that's not happening there. And it's likely not happening in Los Angeles either. We just saw what happened with the school board in Beverly Hills. But I think this is a classic example of you have a real leader, a leader that could actually just become the de facto leader of an entire national party. Because essentially that's what he would become. My opinion is Zohran is the de facto populist left leader of the Democratic Party should he win. Now, will he do anything with it? Still way too early to tell.
And what can he do? Like what will he do without being obstructed?
Well, he's going to get obstructed. It's just a question of how many people he has at his back. Like how much wind is at his back to actually get anything done. But if he does win, and especially if he wins by double digits, he's going to have a mandate to at least pass one of his major initiatives. My guess is if he had to pick one, it's probably going to be rent control, but we'll see what he ultimately ends up doing. Either way, he's going to try to help working people in the city. And it's going to be an interesting time to see if there's a sea change, because the big difference now versus yesteryear, it's a completely different world when you have social media and access to information at the tip of your fingers at all times. So we'll see.
What I need to do is to meet Jewish New Yorkers at their synagogues, at their temples, at their homes. Even if I was going to make that trip, there is legislation that does not allow anyone who supports a nonviolent movement calling for the compliance of the Israeli government with international law to be allowed into that state. And I say that to say that there has to be a greater recognition of what is going on. And the fact is, for me, my politics come back from a politics of the universal. I believe that freedom and justice and safety, liberty, these things have to apply to everyone for them to be meaningful. And that also includes Palestinians.
I don't care about Israel either. In fact, that's probably one of his most endearing qualities. Okay. First of all, I'm a real estate investor and a commercial realtor. But you can think whatever you want. I don't care. If anything, I'm a class trader because I care about the betterment of working people. I care about animals. I don't care about rich individuals who think that the object in life is to just accumulate as much wealth as possible and screw over everybody else in the process. In fact, I met with an investor the other day that, for those who know real estate terminology, basically said, well, if it's anything less than a 12 cap, I'm not interested. And then I just felt like telling him, well, listen, it was nice meeting you. We're never going to work together because we're never going to reach terms that are agreeable, because in your mind, the only person that matters is you.
We need to deal with this. Can you deal with that?
I don't know how you can come to that conclusion. If you wanted to say that Jews in the oligarchic class of society, like Jamie Dimon, like Mark Zuckerberg.
But it isn't that they're Jewish, it's that they're oligarchs.
Yes, which again is my point, is saying if you want to say them from the oligarchic class, yes. And as we have often stated, and will state again, despite what some of our bigoted friends on the podcast who come to the chat want us to believe, the fact of the matter is this is a class war, nothing more. So if you want to know who's really causing trouble and is making our lives more difficult, it is without question a class struggle. Now, do I think that there is a certain level of responsibility that I feel that the Jewish population has because of their stone silence on calling out those that do not represent them properly? Yes, I do. But you know what? In almost every culture, there is a certain code of silence that exists. Listen, there's a code of silence amongst police officers in this country.
This is starting to annoy me. Endless wars are not pushed by Jews. They're pushed by Zionists.
Yeah.
And if you don't know the difference between Judaism and Zionism, we've covered it a lot. but you really need to educate yourself. Okay. Because I know plenty of people in Jewish community that are not that. And I know Christian Zionists that are that. So I don't think you understand what you're talking about. And I think that you are bigoted and should educate yourself.
I also think a lot of it comes from a place of anger and resentment because the system does not work for the average person. In fact, it works for a very small enclave of individuals. And I would agree, if you're talking about it from a class perspective, that it's wrong. Yes, there are certain institutional advantages that exist in this country. And yes, they do exist if you're Jewish. And they also exist for other people in other high places. But as we said, if you treat this as anything other than the class war that it is, look at Keaton and Russell from Do Dissonance. Those are two working class Jews, and they share the same sentiments that Jen does about the state of Israel and about the state of the Jewish oligarchy in the United States. So stop projecting it as anything other than what it is. It's a class
you're using
war.
it, honestly, it's very weak-minded to just somehow blame Jews.
Yeah,
I would also suggest that you've probably never really met Jews and not working class Jews. And
as we've said before, if you think that Jewish bigotry is a problem in this country, that is nothing, and I mean nothing, compared to Muslim bigotry. And I guarantee you that the average person in this country who just hates Muslims and just thinks that they're all, brownies from the Middle East and all that shit, they have never stepped foot in a mosque. They have probably never interacted with somebody who's Muslim, and especially somebody who wears a hijab. Like, they don't know these people, but they claim to know what they're all about. You see, that is the level of ignorance and arrogance that exists within our culture. And let me assure you, ladies and gentlemen, even though I'm not a world traveler as much as I would like to be, that is a truly unique quality, if you want to call it that, here in the United States. We prejudge worse than any other culture in the world. No one is worse than us. We assume we know when we don't know shit.
And this is correct. If you really understand how this works, you would understand that Zionism is actually the antithesis of Judaism, which is why there are very many very Orthodox Jews that are averse to Zionism. They don't like it. They think it's idol worship. We had Rabbi Yaakov Shapiro on. He talked very much at length about that. It is actually a violation of the Torah to create an ethno-state where it's against the Torah to do it without the return of the Messiah. And it can't be created like this.
And Jen, before Dr. Sidhwa comes in, could you please explain to the audience the difference between the Torah and the Talmud? I don't understand the difference. And so if you can explain.
And I don't know, okay. The Torah is the 5 books of Moses. Okay.
So it's the Old Testament, right? Is that how you describe it? Okay.
Yes. That's the Torah. It is the 5 books of Moses, Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Deuteronomy, Number, whatever that is, right? Like, that's the Torah. The Talmud is a compilation of from Jewish scholars with rules and different. It's a selection of writings from scholars about how to follow Jewish law. It isn't the actual Torah. The Torah is the 5 books of, the 5 books of Moses. That's been supposedly from God, whatever. And again, you guys know I'm an atheist, so I don't really care. But the Talmud is more of a Jewish scholarly written addendum, if you will, as to how to properly follow Jewish laws. So it's much more, I hate to say man-made because it's all man-made, but yeah, the Torah is the Bible. The Talmud is texts from scholars compiled in a book. So it's different.
The other thing that I think a lot of people miss here is that there are multiple denominations of Judaism. Like, I believe that there's Reform, there's conservatism. Where do you kind of separate? I think, how many different ones are? I think it's like 3 different ones.
Okay, well, you're talking about levels of, so you've got Orthodox, conservative, Reform, Reconstruction, humanistic. I mean, there's so many now, but when you're talking about the biography or the biology part, you've got Sephardic, Ashkenazi, and Mizrahi Jews. That would be sort of like where those Jewish people come from geographically. So the Sephardic Jews are generally Iberian Peninsula, and the Mizrahi Jews are what we've considered Arabic Jews. So the Palestinian Jews are Mizrahi Jews. The Iraqi Jews are the Iranian Jews. Those are what we call Mizrahi Jews, even though Iran isn't Arabic. I mean, I know, but just they're not Jews from Europe. Those are the Ashkenazi Jews, and they're white. So that, and then there are different sects, but even within the Hasidic, sects, there's multiple ones. Like if you went to Brooklyn, there are probably 10 different, at least, Hasidic sects in different neighborhoods in Brooklyn. And they do have slightly different variances of rules. Like some of them, the women can wear wigs instead, or what we call shingles, instead of just like a scarf. Some they can't. Some girls can have bat mitzvah, some they can't. So there's all these rules that are superimposed even at that very Hasidic level that vary. But to someone like me, those are, to me, again, to me, it's kind of the same.
But that is the problem with American culture that I'm sure Dr. Sidhwa has also experienced, which is there is a surface level understanding that the average American is only willing to take on when it comes to assessing a given situation, especially one as volatile as the one that we're dealing with right now. But I don't think it can be understated how appreciative and grateful we are to have this gentleman on our podcast this evening. Obviously, we have a very similar thought process, especially you do, Jen, with your fellow tribes member, Katie Halper, who is how we came to Dr. Sidhwa's attention in the first place. And now that we have made this possible, Dr. Feroze Sidhwa is a general trauma and critical care surgeon in Northern California. He is also a humanitarian surgeon, and he has worked extensively in the real state of
Mizrahi.
Palestine.
Those are Mizrahi Jews. Sorry,
Right.
JG 1982. Those are also Mizrahi Jews. Sorry, continue.
Dr. Sidhwa, welcome to Revolutionary Change.
Hey, good to be with you.
So you are in this very small group of people that I have been watching in awe over the past 2 years that, like, I know the trauma that I feel from watching, like what I've been watching for 2 years. Like I've said it before, I feel ruined. I'll never be okay. I'm never, like, this has ruined me in terms of like my spirit. I've been morally wrong, and I haven't seen it in person. So I cannot fathom how people like you are able to do what you do. You know, and granted, I don't understand how you could be how anybody could be a trauma surgeon anyway, but you know what I mean? Like, this is like, and how that you can even be sitting here smiling. Like, I feel ruined, and that I don't even know how to go on. Like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. I can never stop thinking about it. So, yeah, that was just what I wanted to say. And I am very, very inspired by you. And there's some other doctors that I've seen that have been just amazing. And I am married to a physician, and I've been with him for 30 years. So I actually typed his med school applications back in the day on a typewriter, mind you. But so I know just from personal experience, I've been around the medical community for 20 something years. I know that when a group of doctors are saying this is what is, this is what is. And when people try to, discredit or assign any sort of like ulterior motive to, like, say, Doctors Without Borders, for example, or any of those groups, it's so insulting to me as a doctor's wife. I can't explain it, because I know that when you are there, that your whole job is just helping and saving people. That's it. Like, it's not at all political. And so when doctors are getting involved in the discussion, that means something. And to me,
Okay, so Jen is actually on the Starlink, and she just froze for a second.
Oh, no.
You definitely have a pretty good idea of where to start, Doug. Obviously, please share your thoughts on, just what this whole experience has been like, this traumatic experience has been like for the past 2 years.
Yeah, I actually, I hear I hear the same thing that you said from a lot of people, that like how can you be like normal after what you saw? And like I think part of it is that because I'm a doctor and I'm able to actually go there and actually do some things, with my own hands. I think I just actually don't feel as helpless as most people. And it's not, we all know that bad things happen in the world, like we're not children here. We're not naive, but we all know bad things happen in the world. But what we have a hard time dealing with, I think, I personally think, for those of us who aren't Palestinian or Israeli, for those of us who are Americans, I think what actually bothers most of us is that we're the ones, like as Americans, we're the ones doing these things. Like I'm guessing you guys would agree. I always say there's no. Sorry, I'm like terrible with the camera. I always say there's no Israeli attack on Gaza. There's a U.S. Israeli attack on Gaza.
Yes.
And our own government is actually preventing us from acting like moral people. Like, I don't want to be shooting children in the Gaza Strip. I don't want to be starving children in Gaza or anywhere, obviously. But I don't want to be doing those things. Nevertheless, I am doing them. And it's pumped onto, everyone's social media feed and YouTube and whatever else thing. Even, honestly, even just regular TV kind of features it now. So I think the fact that I am able to do something, actually, it's a blessing in some ways, or it's a privilege, I guess I should say, in some ways, because I just don't feel as helpless as other people do, which is lucky for me, I suppose. But at the same time, a lot of people who've come back from Gaza have had some pretty tough. I'm lucky in that I haven't so far had any like PTSD symptoms or things like that. But I'd say most people who come back have. And it's tough. I mean, it's normal. Again, it's normal as a doctor to see people in pain, but it's not common to walk into, a room full of screaming and burned children whose moms are all dead. It's definitely a different level of thing in Gaza than what we're used to. That's even as a trauma. Like, I'm a trauma surgeon in Stockton, California, which is a pretty rough town.
Right.
And I grew up in Flint, Michigan. So it's like, I'm not,
oh man,
I'm not like someone who's never been around violence or never seen poverty, but obviously Gaza is a very different thing.
Yeah, I think also it has to do with the intentionality of it and the mass scale of it. Most times I think most traumas, you've got gang violence, you have shootings, you do. But a lot of stuff, it's not intentional. It's a lot of stuff is accidents. There's a lot of stuff that you deal with that is accidental, and car accident, whatever. It's not, but the systemic mass murder of children, this is not normal. This is not normal.
Yeah, it's definitely not normal. And, I still remember for some, and it's weird. Like medically, it doesn't make any sense. But we had, this was the first time I was in Gaza when I was at European Hospital. We had this series of injuries, all, just the usual mass casualty event that we had. Bunch of kids, bunch of women, bunch of men who were perfectly innocent people. And then this one kid came in with a bump on his head. And when we found out it was actually just from a car crash, they just crashed their car. There was absolutely nothing else going on. We kind of, for some reason, even though the kid could still have the same injuries as anybody else, we kind of breathed a sigh of relief. We said, a normal one, for God's sake. It's definitely, it's weird. There's a certain, again, medically, it doesn't make any sense. He can still be just as injured as someone who was injured in a bombing. But nevertheless, there's just something psychologically, spiritually, I don't know, different.
Well, it's the moral difference. It's a moral.
Yeah, exactly. It's the moral difference of it. Exactly. There's a difference between intentionally hurting people and the usual workings of a human society where people just get injured. Yeah.
How did you get into this? Like, how did you first, like, how many times have you been? Like, talk how you got into going there, and had you been there before? Like, had you been there before, the past couple of years?
Yeah. So, I went to med school in 2006, and I had already I lived in Israel for about a year after I graduated from college. I lived in Haifa, and I worked in with an Arab Jewish cooperative. And Haifa is the only mixed Arab Jewish city or Palestinian Jewish city in Israel. And after and during that time, I was editing one of Norman Finkelstein's books on the conflict, Beyond Chutzpah. So that book, Beyond Chutzpah, and a lot of his other books too, they really focus on the human rights dimension of the Israel-Palestine conflict, whatever you want to call it. And so because of that, I think at least up until like 2012, I think I've read every human rights report in the English language on Israel-Palestine. And so, once you do that, it's kind of hard to forget about it. You can just be like, okay, well now, because it's our level of involvement is so extreme, and not just since October 7th, going back to, you can argue the 70s or even the 60s. Our level of involvement is so extreme that you just can't, I think as an American, you just can't walk away from it. Because I'm not Palestinian. I don't have any roots in the region. My family is from a small ethnic and religious minority in India and Pakistan. We don't have anything to do. I don't have anything to do ethnically or religiously with the Middle East. So,
come on, that it's all the same. You know that it's all the same.
Yeah, it's like you guys were talking about before. Maybe I'm a Mizrahi Jew. I'm not sure.
Right, it's all the same.
But that's the thing, is like, it's just, you can't look away from it at that point. And so, but anyway, so I went through med school, decided I was going to be a surgeon, and then I actually thought I was going to be a pediatric surgeon, but then I ended up liking trauma surgery. And so when I went into trauma, I said, okay, well, this is kind of a natural way to keep doing international work. Because I had done some, like I mentioned, I lived in Israel. And then after my first year of med school, I worked in Achli Hospital in Hebron for 6 weeks or 8 weeks. I can't remember now. And then I tried to, like, when I did a master's of public health, I tried to go to Gaza to do my practicum project there. They wouldn't let me in, so I couldn't go. So I'd been doing international work for a long time. And so, in 2022, the Russian invasion of mainland Ukraine happened. So I went to Ukraine. I worked I was just doing educational work there. It wasn't clinical work. But I was teaching their doctors and nurses and med students about trauma care, because they don't really know anything about it. And but then when October 7th happened, and then obviously the violence in Gaza escalated massively from what it already was before. The siege worsened. It was kind of obvious. Anybody who knew anything about Gaza knew exactly what was going to happen after October 7th. The Israelis were just going to do what they had already been doing, but take it up to 11. And that's exactly what they did. I mean, so I knew what was going to happen. And when I think it was December of 2023, or maybe January 2024, somewhere around there, I got an email from the Society for Critical Care Medicine saying if people want to volunteer with the World Health Organization in the Gaza Strip, here's a way to do it. So I did, and I've just been going back ever since. I'm supposed to go back in November, but we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Doc, do you see Israel becoming a pariah state? We talk constantly about where the perception of the nation has gone over the past 2 years. It was probably always bubbling at the surface, but so many of the things that one would not know about. For example, I wasn't as familiar with the USS Liberty story prior to October 7th, and now I am, and we're actually having one of the survivors of the attack on our show on 9/11. So I think from your perspective, I'd have to imagine that some of your optimism is that there is this light at the end of the tunnel, that there is this sea change that's happening, where Israel is never going to be what it once was ever again, even if it isn't today or tomorrow, but eventually it will be. Do you kind of feel the same way?
It's not that any, like Germany today is a very different thing from Nazi Germany, right? Well, at least in most ways. Or maybe Japan is a better example. Japan is no longer, Imperial Japan killing 30 million people in China and, mass rape and all sorts of horrific human experimentation, things like that. So I don't think that countries can't change or redeem themselves, I guess you could say. But what Israel was already a pariah state before October 7th of 2023, and it's kind of important to remember. So was the U.S. Like it's true that we're everywhere in the world, but that's purely because of our power. It's got nothing to do with people actually wanting us around anymore. The U.S. is really the whole U.S. footprint in the Middle East, right? Other than in Israel, Israel is a democracy for Jews. It's kind of hard to argue. It's a democracy in toto, but even though we hear that all the time, but the whole American project in the Middle East is to make sure that no democratic country other than Israel actually ever exists there, and just for the obvious reason that they wouldn't let us take all the oil. If we did, they wouldn't. No democratic country would let the greatest material prize in human history go somewhere else. If that's just completely ridiculous. That's not how people work. So, and the U.S. has been doing this since the 50s, like when we were a net exporter of oil. So, the U.S. has, or actually, like there's a famous report from the National Security Council in the 50s, like under Eisenhower, where you guys have probably heard it before, but I think Eisenhower had just gone to Indonesia, and he came back and he said something like, there's a campaign of hatred against us in Indonesia, and it's not coming from the government, it's coming from the people of Indonesia. So he said, why is that? He asked the National Security Council, and they came back with an answer, and they said, there's a perception in Indonesia, but it generalizes to the rest of the world. There's a perception in Indonesia that the United States blocks democracy and development and supports dictatorships in order to control the resources of the region. And they went on to say that it's going to be hard to counter this perception because it's accurate. It's exactly what we're doing, and that's what we should do because we won World War II, we own the world now, and we can do whatever we want. We're powerful, so we will. I forget which American diplomat it was, but that also in the 50s said that at the end of World War II, we find ourselves in a situation where the United States has accumulated half the world's wealth, and the purpose of American foreign policy should be to maintain this disparity. Well, okay, that's not going to make you popular. That means that the U.S. is going to become a pariah state, and Israel is kind of the U.S.'s attack dog in the Middle East. So Israel is also going to be a pariah state. Now that's up to them. They don't have to do that. That was actually that's a choice that they made, and kind of the famous date that it's put back to is 1971 when Sadat made a major offer to the Israelis. At the time, Israel was occupying the Sinai Peninsula after the '67 war, and Sadat made an offer saying that if Sadat was the president of Egypt at the time, or the dictator of Egypt, and he said, if you withdraw from the Sinai, we'll have full peace with Israel, no questions, no nothing. Nothing. He didn't even mention the Palestinians in his offer. The Israeli cabinet considered that offer, and they dismissed it. They knew it was serious. They didn't have any. They didn't. Nobody claimed that it was a ruse or something like that. They knew it was serious, and they rejected it. And the reason they rejected it, they said very clearly, is that we're strong and we'll do whatever the hell we want. Well, okay, that's going to turn you into a pariah state, and sure enough, it did. And this kind of racist arrogance has really gotten Israel into trouble twice now. Once was in 1973 when Sadat's forces actually invaded, along with Syria, and then the next time was on October 7th of 2023. Unfortunately, I have a lot of. I hate saying things like this; it makes you sound ridiculous. But I have a lot of friends in Israel, Israeli friends, and they don't. They kind of look around and they're just like, what is my country doing? Why is it acting this way? They just can't. They've always known that they had problems with racism and militarism, things like that. I don't know if either one of you have spent any time there, but that's pretty hard to miss when you're there.
I've been there. You're pointing the wrong way. I'm on the other side of you. Yeah.
But it's pretty hard to miss when you're there. Like what's the guy's name who just had he's a congressman, Richie Torres. He just had that discussion with Adam Friedland, right? Yeah. Where it's kind of interesting because he's like, yeah, I went to Israel and I was so poor in the Bronx, and the Bronx is so poor and there's so much violence in the Bronx. And I went to Israel and I was like, oh, these guys, I don't remember his exact words. He was like, this makes a deep and positive impression on me. And you're like, how? Were you paying attention to anything that happened when you were there? Like, that's ridiculous. Why is it that Ta-Nehisi Coates can go to Hebron, right? and walk in and just know instantly that he's in an apartheid situation. It's funny because I remember the same thing happening to me when 2004 or 5 it must have been, because I just graduated from college. I went to Hebron for the first time, and you go to the Palestinian part of the city, and it's it's under occupation, but it's like normal. Things are functioning. There's a market. There's cars driving or whatever. Then you go to the old city, which is where the Jewish settlements are in the middle of the city. That's where you can walk up to Kiryat Arba, and as the second you walk through that turnstile, the Israeli military checkpoint, the second you walk through it, every single human being who goes through says, "Oh shit, what did I just walk into?" Something. It's quiet. There's nothing. There's no violence going on, or not right in front of you. But something is wrong. You've gone from this bustling metropolis 100 meters behind you to this ghost town. You walk in, and there's some Jewish families walking in the distance. There's no one else. It's very weird, and you can tell instantly that something's wrong, right? So why Coates can figure it out very easily. Without having to do any research or anything like that. Yeah. And Richie Torres can say, "Oh yeah, it was the greatest thing that ever happened to me." Is weird. But anyway, sorry, I kind of got off.
No, it has to do with how they're shown and what they're shown and what they see. And if you're there on some brainwashing propaganda tour, the only Palestinians that you'll meet are going to be the people that sell out their own. You're going to meet the people that are the West Bank people that are basically, we used to call them the capo Jews that used to turn on the other Jews in the Holocaust, right? That's the only Palestinians that you're going to be around at all, if any, if you go and do one of those tours. Now, I was there in 87, in the summer of 87. You were maybe born. So, right. So when I was there, it was before the first Intifada. And there were no visible signs.
I wish I could pick up for you, Jen, but unfortunately I can't. But you have told this story before in that the walls hadn't been put up yet compared to what it ultimately is today. Today, it looks like a police state. You talk about, we're going to build this big, beautiful wall in the southern border. Why don't you go take a look at what it looks like in Gaza? And in the West Bank. I mean, it is a police state. There's no getting around that.
And it's kind of interesting because from 1967, sorry, Jenny, it got cut off, but I'm guessing you were going to say there were no massively visible signs of occupation, right? Because from 1967 to 1987, when did the first Intifada start? 87?
And
later that
right
year,
after
right?
I left. I was
really,
there in 87, and then it happened that fall.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's right. And because from 67 to 87, the Israelis basically ran the West Bank with very little military force because the Palestinians were so passive. These are the people that now Benjamin Netanyahu, and I just watched a discussion with Peter Beinart and some other crazy guy, or not some crazy guy. Beinart's not crazy, but where this guy was saying, how can we live next to these people? How can we live next to these people? These people were docile lambs when you met them. And now they're doing stuff like October 7th and you're losing your mind. It's like, it's kind of ridiculous. But yeah, no, it is not it's not just a police state. I mean, if anyone's seen Children of Men, that's what the West Bank looks like. It's this horror show. I mean, it's the whole place. It actually kind of, it strikes me more as though somebody built a prison but forgot to separate the prisoners from the surrounding neighborhood. They said, okay, you guys are all in prison, but I'm not going to actually physically separate you from the people that live around the prison. So, it's crazy. Like the way the settlements are just stacked right on top of Palestinian towns and villages. Actually, I'm reading, it's I.L. Weitzman's, I forget the name of the book now. He's the guy that founded forensic architecture. I'm reading his book from 2007 right now. I forget the name of it right now. Hollow Land. It's called Hollow Land. And he describes in really impressive detail, but also making it really accessible, how the settlement enterprise came to be what it actually is. Like, why is it hilltops? Why is it, and it's a really fascinating thing. But like when you're there, you're literally, and I mean, I was there the last time I was in the West Bank was, I mean, other than when we drove through it to get to Gaza, was in 2008, I guess, or 9. It was a long time ago now. And but even then, when there were 200,000 less settlers than there are now, even then you could never be in a Palestinian village. The cities were a little bit different, but never be in a village without seeing a settlement. It's like you're in the Panopticon or something. It's just crazy. It's pretty wild. It's pretty wild. If people knew what has actually been done to the Palestinians, and I emphasize not by Israel, by us. We are the ones that did. We paid for every drop of it. We stopped every time the world wanted to stop it. We prevented them from doing it at the Security Council and at many other forums. If people see what we have helped the Israelis do in the West Bank, they'll have a different understanding of who's the good guy and who's the bad guy.
Well, that's why they're killing all the journalists and doctors now, isn't it?
Yeah, and that's also why you can't have. That's why there's no serious discussion of it in the American press. It's
well, it is unfortunate that is the way things work in this country. Is that we still? I don't think it's the way it used to be. I think it's definitely.
I'm freezing. I'm so unhappy. I'm freezing.
Actually, I think. Sorry, but I think you froze.
I do. He's in New Jersey with Wi-Fi, so I don't know what his problem is. I'm in the middle of nowhere without plumbing in Baconton, Georgia. With a satellite. So he's the one. He's in some nice house on the coast in New Jersey. I don't know what his problem is.
Well, this actually is a good illustration of what exactly what are we doing. There was a fellow, I forget, some politician whose name I'd never heard before. You guys, I think, know the political scene better than I do. But he recently said something like, we should be using our money to build schools, not bomb them in Gaza, right? The U.S. is broadband. Oh, now you're both frozen. The U.S. is broadband. Oh, there we go.
Hey, it rubbed off on me, brother. She got blocked out as well. So
yeah, but the U.S.'s broadband coverage and broadband service is at the level of like Hungary. The last time I saw statistics about this, that's insane. Like I think our per capita GDP is probably twice what theirs is. Like that, how can we have poorer internet connectivity than the poorest countries in Europe? That's ridiculous. Like we have a lot of
that's deliberate though. That's
well, it probably is, but that's the thing is like we have so many things in our society that we can fix, and that would make our lives better. Would make our life just it's real weird that we agree, or that we allow ourselves to be deluded, I guess, whatever you want to say, by the powers that be into doing not just what we're doing to Israel, or not just what we're doing in Israel to the Palestinians, but literally just all over the world. None of it benefits you, me. It benefits, Lockheed Martin and maybe some other people, but
Well, as I was alluding to before I got kicked, I think it's
what
important.
happened to you? You're in some posh place in New Jersey. How in the world are you having issues?
That's what I'm saying.
Posh, but
I have overgrown grass. We need goats here. The grass is what's I think interfering with the Starlink, and I already have it raised up.
Well, I can't attest to what the reason is, but
it's Elon Musk. Elon Musk is sabotaging me.
Well, Jen, you speak very poorly of me, and unfortunately,
because you're a piece of shit, and I think you're a douche canoe. So
keep it up, and I will keep bowing to the state of Israel, and then you really would appreciate that very much. It just goes to show you how powerful the whole connection really is. Because if Elon's on his hands and knees for them, the second they say bark, it's unfortunate, but we have to do what we can with the tools that we've been given. And so credit where credit is due. Joaquin Phoenix has always been, kind of a wild card in many ways. Rooney Mara, on the other hand, is one of the heirs to the Wellington Mara fortune, one of the co-owners of the New York Giants football team. Go G-Men. I am a Giants fan. So this just makes it a lot easier for me.
It all comes down to that for you, doesn't it? It really does. It all comes down to that for you.
Well, I would imagine that you're either a Lions fan or a 49er fan. And if that is the case, then you're rooting for two franchises that right now are doing pretty well. Jen, unfortunately,
who are you talking to? Dr.
Dr. Sidhwa lives in Stockton, California. So
That
odds
doesn't
are,
mean no. Do you even care about the sporty games?
The only sport that I actually pay any attention to is MMA.
real football.
No, I don't. MMA fighting is pretty much the only sport I pay much attention to. Cricket? Oh God, I don't think I've actually ever seen a cricket game, nor do I have any.
It looks very boring to me, but I
It
know
looks
it's
extremely
really
like the same way I
so-
don't like baseball. I don't think I would like cricket.
I don't. Baseball is like
looks
watching paint
pretty
dry to me.
abysmal. Yeah.
Well, for those that have been paying attention to this story, of course, everybody probably does remember, if they've been paying attention to what's been going on in Gaza for the past 2 years, the story of Hind Rajab and what happened to this 6-year-old child. This was probably the story that I can remember very vividly, kind of broke Jen. It was certainly one of the saddest circumstances that occurred. And the fact that you heard her crying for help. And then
I'm never getting her little voice out of my head for the rest of my life. Like for the rest. And I didn't understand a word she was saying, Mom.
And that's the thing is like, even though you can't understand what
Out of
she's
my head
saying
for the rest of my life.
Yeah. Even though you can't understand what she's saying, you don't even need the subtitles. I mean, you can just, it's pretty remarkable. The story of Hind Rajab is an unusually horrifying human.
And to their credit, they made this a front and center story, along with, as I mentioned, Rooney Mara, who is his significant other, and she is a heir to a substantial fortune. So obviously, she is in a position to have FU money.
What? That means they have
money.
fuck you money. That's right.
And of course, you add Brad Pitt into the mix, and this is a very large story. So I believe this is from one of the award ceremonies that took place the other night, and this is a cutaway.
It was at the film festival. I think it's at the Venice.
Yes.
This is at the Venice Film Festival. They showed it, and then I think what you're seeing is after the screening of the movie.
I just want to go back to this for 1 second. Look at that. The voice of Hind Rajab stuns Venice Film Festival with its longest standing ovation of 24 minutes amid tears and free Palestine chants. See, in this country that we live in, they could never allow a scene like this to happen because it would change public perception and attitude probably very quickly, especially if it happened at any one of the major award shows. We saw how the Democratic Party responded at the convention when they even attempted to have a single voice on stage who just happened to be Palestinian. I mean, Lord knows if they would have said anything about it. Maybe they would have, maybe they wouldn't. But the fact that they are so, the censorship is so over the top, it really goes to show you how sheltered the perception is here in this country. Because all over the world, it does seem that this is sort of the universal reaction that is getting around right now.
Yeah, and I mean, even with the coverage of the the Washington Post, for example, published a lot of Hind's call with her mother and the PM or the pet PRCS dispatcher that she was talking to. Now, she was on the phone for hours. I think they published like 20 or 30 minutes of it.
Yeah.
And it's it's definitely hard to listen to, but then. Again, like kind of like what we started talking about, we all know that bad things happen in the world. We all know that people abuse each other. Okay, fine. Why? The question is why. Okay, fine. Hind Rajab, this sweet little child, was viciously treated in the last hours of her life. I mean, treated in a way that no one would ever treat an animal. And she's a 6-year-old child, right? I mean, why does a 6-year-old child have to die? Saying like that there's a point in the tape where the dispatcher, I get sad when I talk about this, sorry, but the dispatcher says something along the lines of, Hind, why aren't you talking as much? And this child, again, this 6-year-old kid, she has no clue what's going on. She says, well, every time I talk now, blood comes out of my mouth, and if I get blood on my clothes, my mom will get mad at me.
Oh.
Which is, I mean, like you can just tell she doesn't have, it's horrifying, right? Like it's a kind of thing that you can't, like I find it hard to even say out loud without having a tear in my eye. But then all of the coverage is, well, what actually happened here? Let's have this long ass article showing the position of Israeli tanks and the position of Israeli snipers and the possibility that Hamas actually shot. Like, it's completely ridiculous. Instead of just focusing on the fact that this, you can blame whoever you want for it. It's perfectly obvious that Hamas doesn't have tanks with which to rake cars with gunfire. There's no reason this child would have been lying to the dispatcher saying there are tanks right in front of me. The tanks then destroyed the ambulance that was sent to rescue her after coordinating with them. Like, it's just, the whole thing is so ludicrous that it's like it's like this recent attack on Nasser medical complex that happened, where the journalists were all journalists and others were standing on a balcony.
The double tap.
No, it was, and so this is actually crazy. It turns out it was 4 separate munitions that hit that hospital. And I still, when the video was first sent out, the first video that we had was the balcony. It looks like it's the front of the hospital. It's actually the back, but that's where I worked. That's the 4th floor stairwell. Now, the Israelis know full well that that's where the Reuters and AP live feeds in Khan Yunis are from.
Yes.
That's where they're broadcast from. They're not confused about that. They knew exactly why the guy was up there with a camera. There was no concern that it was a Hamas camera. This is all just made. And like the fact that media entertained this for even half a second is just disgraceful. Like, it's not that Israeli claims should hold no weight. Of course, anybody who says anything, we should listen to it. But it's not like reporters aren't having the Israeli spokespeople write their headlines, right? Like, that's ridiculous. Or I should say the headline editor isn't doing that. They gathered all this information and then they put it into a package and they decided how to present it. So the fact that they still went with the Israeli claim, no matter how ludicrous it is, that they thought that a Reuters camera, which is set up every day in the same place to broadcast the Reuters live feed from Khan Yunis, was a Hamas camera, is idiotic. So why is it the headline in most places? Israel says it attacked Hamas camera at hospital. Well, yeah, okay, that's like, and again, if you get mad at them about this, I just know
attacked the camera. They attacked a camera.
No, yeah, they attacked a camera. By
people would care so much about a camera.
Right. Well, but that's the thing. All of this is just so ludicrous that you can't even take it seriously, And it's the same thing with Hind Rajab. The story of Hind Rajab's killing is so beyond absurd. The denials about it, the ludicrous claims, Israeli forces weren't even in that area. What are you talking about? You coordinated her rescue if you weren't there, why would you have to do, it's absurd. But all of this nonsense is treated as, it's not just pablum that we can just like imagine if Russia said any of this crap about attacks in Ukraine. Would the New York Times and the Washington Post and the Wall Street Journal, would they have these long articles analyzing where was a Russian tank? Where was the Russian drone? Is it possible that Ukrainian forces did this? Instead, no one would give a shit. Everyone just says, yeah, an atrocity happened. It's the Russians' fault, and we move on with our lives because that's how war works. It's pretty normal that the people with vastly more firepower are the ones committing the attacks when they involve vast amounts of firepower. It's completely ridiculous. The same thing with even with the attack. On March 23rd, that's the day when I was at Nasser and it was attacked there. Right, it was attacked while I was there. One of my patients was killed. That same day is when Israel attacked and murdered and buried those 15 Palestine Red Crescent workers, a UN worker, the civil defense workers. It happened to be that same day. The same crap happens after every humongous, earth-shattering atrocity that the U.S. and Israel carry out in Gaza. It's this same long investigative process, even at these newspapers. And then in the end, they say, well, we're pretty sure the Israelis were not telling the truth the whole way. And then even with that incident, the next, that incident with the killing of the healthcare workers in Tel Sultan, the 15 that were buried and their ambulances were buried and blah, blah, blah. It's a really shocking story. The Israeli unit, the Israelis were preparing a surprise attack in that area for the next morning. So this Israeli unit had moved into position. And the the report there, or the investigation that the Israeli military did into this attack afterwards, found that the commander of the unit disobeyed orders and just decided to kill these ambulance crews for basically no reason. But that in doing so, he actually endangered this whole surprise attack that was supposed to happen the next day. Right now, I don't care about that, but obviously they do. So this guy went out of his way, violated orders, put his entire military operation at risk to murder 2 ambulance crews. And why isn't that the story? Like that's what the story ought to have been. Instead, it's this, again, long investigative piece about a whole bunch of fucking nonsense that nobody can even follow. Nobody even, you're like parsing the most minute things. Could this oxygen canister possibly have been mistaken for a weapon? Like all sorts of just ludicrous nonsense. It just blows your mind. It really does. It really does. And it leaves people confused.
Yeah.
No, it's by design, and it leaves people confused. Yeah, it leaves people confused, not knowing who's right, who's wrong, and so they say,
"That's it.
Well,
that's the Hasbara. That's part of
and that's the whole point. Yes, that's the whole point of it. You know,
and I want to
long
say
ago.
Something to Matt's too. Many more like Mr. Rajab. Yeah, let me be clear that her voice is the one I heard, but she is to me like this symbol of all those babies. Like it doesn't. I mean, it's just that's the voice that we heard. Also, now I think I keep seeing a mirror. With Anthony Aguilar over and over. Like I keep seeing that one. So they'll, but no, I know there's
no,
she's
and that's
the symbol of that to me.
Yeah. And that's that's one of the ways that like, and I'm glad you brought that up because it really shows the difference between how Israeli victims are portrayed. Sorry. Uncomfortable.
Yeah.
It shows the difference between how Israelis or really not just Israelis, I should say, just anyone who's a worthy victim in the press is presented. They're humanized. They're like, because obviously the people at the Washington Post, right, who listened to these hours of Hind Rajab tapes, that must have affected them. There's no way they're human beings, right? I mean, there's no way.
Not if it was Barry Weiss.
Yeah.
Depends on who. On Barry Weiss. And Barry Weiss is kind of a nutcase, right? And there are people in every society that just either don't have a conscience or are very happy to suppress it for fame and fortune or whatever it is. I don't know what Barry. I guess she's getting $200 million, so that's a lot of fame and a lot of fortune. But so like one way you humanize people is by presenting their stories, presenting their face, when Hersh Goldberg Paulin was killed, he was an ex-IDF soldier. He was a dual American Israeli citizen, I believe, and he was kidnapped from the Reem Music Festival. And he actually did something which is quite honorable, in my opinion, at least. A grenade was thrown into the room that he was hiding with people, and he actually picked it up and threw it out of the room, and his arm was destroyed. I think he lost his right arm. Wow. Now on August, I think 30th or 31st of last year, I can't remember the exact date now. I apologize. Israeli special forces were apparently getting close to the tunnel where he was being held. So he and I think 2 other captives were murdered. They were executed by their Hamas captors, and then their bodies were found. Now, the Hersh's story has been told in dozens and dozens of news stories. He has his own Wikipedia page. The U.S. issued arrest warrants and charges against the 5, I think they're all dead now, but 5 Hamas people who were thought to be involved in his killing. And that's all appropriate, right? That's how you treat the victims of crimes. But on the same day, literally the same day, a third-year med student whom I worked with, his name was Abdul Rahman al-Najjar. If you put them side by side, they're basically the same person. They're both Semites. They're both, they basically look the same. They're 2 years. I think Hersh was 23, and Abdul Rahman was 21 when he was killed. Well, Abdul Rahman was born into a concentration camp. He grew up in a concentration camp. He lived through, I think, 8 Israeli wars or Israeli attacks, the U.S. Israeli attacks on Gaza. He lived through Operation Cast Lead. He lived through Operation Defensive Edge, or Protective Edge. He lived through Operation, whatever the 2014 was called, Protective Shield, Protective Edge. He lived through Pillar of Defense. He lived through all of these crazed Israeli, just marauding bombing campaigns in Gaza. And at age 18, he went to med school. And then at age 20, his medical school was physically destroyed. And at age 21, he was murdered. Well, why isn't that worth a story? Why can Hirsch, Goldberg, Pollan be humanized? Which, again, just to emphasize, is the right thing to do. But Abdul Rahman can't. I presented his case or his story to multiple American reporters, and they all said, "Yeah, no, this would be a really good story, but not there. I know my editor won't let me publish it." Yeah, and that's even including people who have done stories about medical students in Gaza. Even they, like, it blows your mind. So this is how people can be made to seem like some of us are human and some of us are unpeople. You know, it's a really ugly thing. But when you hear someone like Hind Rajab, you see the cute little picture of her when she graduated from probably first grade or something, you know. When you see the little girl that went on Miss Rachel's program from Gaza, she's got one knee amputated. Rahat, yeah. One leg is amputated below. Notice it at first, you know, but why is she walking so funny? And then you realize, oh my God, those aren't real legs. Like, and you know, these individuals become a way of showing people, not that you needed to be convinced, but a way of showing, you know, the normal person who just looks at the news and says, yeah, that's probably right, and goes on with their life. That's a way of showing people what these people are human. Like, their children are just children. You know, that's not a monster, Cersei. That's just a baby. You know, without those kinds, it's very easy to not show people as human, and then people don't see them that way. Honestly,
well, we're raised that way. I don't know if you know that, but like Ashkenazi Jews in this country and in these states, and I think also in just.
You froze again, Jen.
Poor Jen is.
When you come back, when you come back, we'll continue the clip.
Yeah.
Awesome. This makes me happy. Okay, what are the odds that we're ever going to get to see that movie screened here?
You know, well, one thing I do want to say, which I think is kind of ironic in lieu of all of this, but the fact that it was called the Golden Lion Award, and the fact that Milikowski decided to call their attack on Iran Operation Rising Lion. The only lions are the Palestinians. The cowardly sheep.
Do you know why they did that?
No, I don't.
Do you know why they called it Operation? So the sigil of the Shah of Iran is a lion with a sun rising behind it. So they're basically saying, look, we're going to overthrow your government, which is, you know, again, could very easily be covered in American media. I'm not some sort of Iran expert, but I know.
You're not. You're all the same.
Yeah. Exactly.
And I want to hear what Jen was saying. I'm trying not to freeze. Elon Musk hates me. What I was saying is we are conditioned. We are conditioned as Zionists to hate them, to fear them. They're all Arabs. It doesn't matter whether they're Iraqi or Syrian or Palestine. It doesn't matter. All Arabs, all the same. They're less civilized. They're dirty. They hate us. They want to kill us. That's it. That's the extent of how Western Zionist Jews are raised to believe. And you do
I
that
wouldn't
for
even.
birth.
I couldn't contradict you about how the Ashkenazi community is raised, but I would actually say that it's not, I don't think that's limited to Western Ashkenazi Jews. I think that's the West in general.
Okay, because I can only speak for, I grew up in a very insulated actually the second largest Jewish ghetto in this country when I was a kid was North Miami Beach. We had more Jews per capita than anything other than Brooklyn.
Really?
Yes. And so I grew up basically in a world where everybody was Jewish. So when I went to college in Boulder, that was kind of an interesting thing. But everybody was Jewish. Nobody had Christmas lights. Everybody was Jewish. Everybody, and it was very insulated. And the Arabs were consistently referred to as the other in every context, in every way. And it is so tainted me. Like, people know who watch this. Like, I hate the term Arabs. I think it is just so, you're conglomerating a whole bunch of people based on that you think where they're from and that they're sort of browner, that somehow they're all Arabs. Half of them don't speak Arabic. So what makes them Arab? Like, I don't understand. It's like, are you talking about Palestinians? Are you talking about Lebanese people? I don't know who you're talking about. Like, it's so bigoted to me. Like, for example, you would be referred to as Arab. Just if the community that I grew up in just saw you, whatever, you would just be an Arab.
Probably,
and you're not at all an Arab.
No. Yeah,
Right.
the idea that like Moroccans and Yemenis and Iraqis have very much to do with each other is minimal. You know, they can barely understand each other if they can at all. So yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Doc, before you go, obviously we have one very important event that is coming up. I'm sure you're very familiar with. The 80th session of the United Nations General Assembly will open on Tuesday, September 9th, with high-level week, including the general debate, running from approximately September 22nd to September 29th in New York City. How do you see that unfolding, and do you think that there will be a considerable amount of attention drawn to the UN General Meeting this time around?
Will the world's attention? Yes, for sure. Will Americans and the American media and the American government? I don't know. They barred basically the U.S. has basically said that no one with a Palestinian passport can now come into the U.S., including the UN delegation, which is totally ridiculous. But
but they're totally on the right side of history, Doc.
Right. Yeah, but we want to have a reasoned debate is what we're after. But yeah, no, it's just completely ridiculous. I testified I briefed the Security Council back in May, I guess it was, and it was kind of interesting because I didn't tell them anything they didn't know already, obviously. But the ambassador, I think her name was Shay at the time. I can't remember who it is now. The ambassador, it's a little unusual for an American physician to testify at the UN Security Council. And I don't know, I didn't bother looking up how often when Americans are testifying at the Security Council, does the ambassador not even bother showing up? But that's pretty unusual. For wow. What was the UN ambassador doing that she couldn't spend 8 minutes listening to my testimony at the UN Security Council? So they sent this poor low-level guy who just had to read off this nonsensical statement. But the U.S. doesn't take the UN seriously, and Israel doesn't take the UN seriously, and there's a good reason. It's because they don't have to. The U.S., other countries can try to isolate Israel all they want. But the problem, and this has been said by many other people, it's hardly my turn of phrase. Israel is a stationary American aircraft carrier in the Middle East.
Yes,
that's what it is. And so it's the U.S. and Israeli elite. I'm not talking about people like you and me, and I'm certainly just so no one doesn't misunderstand me. I'm not talking about Jews or something like that. I'm literally talking about the political elites of the United States and Israel have very, not just political, but the political, economic, military are all very heavily and highly integrated. And this is the same is true of American and European elites, for example. British, German, et cetera, et cetera. So when you say that you're going to isolate Israel, that the U.S. just isn't going to let that happen. The only way that, and the UN is great. The UN does stuff. I totally agree with Jeffrey Sachs that the UN is actually like maybe the only thing that can actually save the world from ultimate destruction. But at the same time, it's like saying, like our city council is great, except for the gorilla that we gave a machine gun to and lives in the city council chambers. It's like, well, okay, should we get control of the gorilla? No, let's just have a city council session and see what happens. Like, the gorilla is going to kill people. I can tell you what's going to happen. If we don't, we have to get control of our own country so that we're not a gorilla with a machine gun in the Security Council. We really, it's not, the US's military power is so vastly disproportionate to the rest of the world, and our willingness to use it. Like, it's not just an idle, it's not a threat, right? We invade places all the time. Like, again, we are invading Gaza right now. Like, if China provided as much military hardware to Mexico as we've given to Israel, and then Mexico invaded Texas, we wouldn't call that a Mexican invasion of Texas, right? There's no Israeli invasion of Gaza. It's a U.S.-Israeli invasion of Gaza. If we stop participating in it, it will stop happening, regardless of what the UN does. So that's what has to happen. Americans, that's why people talk to me, they're like, oh, why are you so obsessed with Palestine? Why are you so pro-Palestinian? And I get where the question comes from, but again, it's like you guys have both been saying, this is the consequence of propaganda. I am not opposed to the genocide in Gaza because it's happening to Palestinians. I'm opposed to it because I'm the one doing it, and you're not supposed to do genocide, right? That's pretty straightforward. Like, everybody understands what a hypocrite is. That's not a complicated thing, right? Like, it's in every religious thing and whatever. So you just don't. It has nothing to do with being pro-Palestinian. It has to do with I want to live a more virtuous life than my own government allows me to. And we have, the reason that's the case is because we just don't have a democratic country. We have democratic forms and we have democratic institutions in theory, but they don't function. And I'm guessing on a podcast called Revolutionary Change, I'm guessing the reason that you would present to your audience is because of massive economic disparities in the country. There's other stuff too. There's racism. There's all sorts of things. But the core reason that like Elon Musk can control whether or not you and I can talk right now is because of there's a massive not just income, but wealth and power disparity in this country. The top 10% of people get whatever they want, and the bottom 90% essentially get nothing. So right now, it just doesn't matter that 60 or 70 or 80% of the country is opposed to us sending weapons to Israel. It doesn't matter that half of Jews under the age of 40 think that what Israel's doing in Gaza is genocidal. It doesn't matter that, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It just doesn't matter because we don't have a democratic country. And unfortunately, nothing the UN can do can change that. We have to change that, We are the ones that have to, we have to look at ourselves honestly, and we have to say, look, I was born here. Like this is the only culture I know. English is the only language I speak with any competence. Like I think my country can be a better place than it is, and that's it. Yeah.
Well, we've got problems. I mean, you're talking to, like, for me, I'm anti-imperialist, anti-capitalist. I believe in abolition. I believe in open borders. So I'm completely like a fish out of water with this. And I forget when it was a few years back that there was some study done where it showed that, like, what was the percentage of people, Peter, who had their will represented in our electoral process, like in our policies? It was like less. It was like 1%.
No, it's like 3%. It's very small.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's not a democracy, right? And I don't, before anybody gets all in there and telling me we're a republic, yes, I know we're a republic, but the premise is supposed to be democratic principles. So we have never been that in one way or another, whether it was when Black people couldn't vote, women couldn't vote. Yeah. We have never truly been a place where it's the same for everyone. So, and everyone has an equal say. And so that has never been. And I just, I am at the point where I know that we are not going to vote our way out of this. Yeah. Our system is broken in a way that it cannot be fixed. So what needs to happen is it needs to be dismantled. And that is the growing pains that we're going through right now. We're watching the end of American empire in real time. And I just saw that now we have facilitated a relationship between China and India. Well, that could be, you know, China, India, and Russia are all having meetings and we're not invited. And these are the kinds of things that are going to implode our country. It's not going to be militarily. Nobody can beat us militarily.
Right.
It's going to be economically. And when BRICS and those countries have finally figured out the system to be done with us, that's it. Us and Israel are going to go away. I'm sorry, there's something flying around. Right? So we're going to be done.
Yeah. Yeah. It's only a matter of time.
Yeah. And Americans need to understand that these are like, you know, like, okay, I think we started off by mentioning that at the end of World War II, the U.S. had literally half the world's wealth, right? And again, American foreign policy was designed to maintain that disparity. Well, you can only do that for so long, you know, unless we're just going to keep nuking the entire world, like literally nuking, which means we'll kill ourselves too. You just can't maintain that disparity forever. So Americans just have to decide, do we want to let our leaders drive us off a cliff to the point that, you know, like you said, India, Russia, Brazil, China, all these massive economies just move on without us and our whole system collapses and we all, you know, start eating each other? Or do we just want to get control of our own society and reorganize it in a way that makes sense and we can join the world on an equal footing, just like everybody else? I would much prefer the latter option. I would much prefer if Americans got control of our own economic system, our own political system, our own social systems, and we sat down and talked to each other about how to organize them, how to deal with them. You know, there's a good book. I think it's a British guy that wrote it, but it's about the it's published by Oxford Press. I don't know if it's a British guy that wrote it, but anyway, it's about it's the only academic book that I know that's actually been written on the writing and passage of the Constitution, and it's called The Founders' Coup. It's really, really interesting because you know, and I don't know much about that. I don't know, like I didn't know like the details of that history before I read this book. And what it turns out is that the Constitution was basically just passed for very plain, uninspiring political reasons of the day. And the political thing of the day was basically that war bond speculators had bought a whole bunch of war bonds from people who had fought in the Revolutionary War. And these bonds said that the U.S. government owes you, I don't know, I'm just making it up, but like 5 pieces of silver or whatever. And these veterans kept going in and saying, give me my 5 pieces of silver. I need to pay for my farm stuff. And they would say, go to hell, get off my lawn. And so after a while, speculators bought up all these bonds for much less than they were actually worth. And then the speculators, who were wealthy people, took them to the government and said, give us all the silver that these entitle us to. And of course, the farmers who were, you know, the people who had fought in the war, the farmers, the city dwellers, whoever they might have been, were adamantly opposed to this. They said, no, you didn't give it to me when I asked for it. Why would you give it to this speculative jackass who just gave me, you know, like enough money to buy like a cow? Why are you giving it to him? That's completely inappropriate. That's just obviously inappropriate. Well, so the states started, these states were radically democratic places, you know, like not for women, not for slaves, obviously, but for men. And you know, like in Massachusetts, there were property requirements, but they weren't enforced at all. So like literally 100% of men in Massachusetts, 100% of white men in Massachusetts could vote. And they just said, no, well, you know, but again, it's the time, right? Yeah, obviously. So they just said, no, we're not doing this. Instead, we're just going to issue paper money and all these speculators can go to hell. The state will pay them in paper money. The paper money won't be worth anything. And we'll just, you know, okay, fine. So a large part of the reason the Constitution was passed and why it gives the federal government primacy over the printing of money, over other such things, is just so that these speculators could get their silver from the U.S. government. It's a crazed story. Like, it's completely ridiculous. But the point is, the Constitution of the United States largely exists to undercut the radical democracy that existed in the time of the states. So that's the system that we live in right now. It's not It's a system that is meant to undercut popular democracy. It's a system that's meant to undercut and to stop from happening what most people feel is right. And that's exactly the situation we're in with the genocide in Gaza. It's hardly just that. Medicare for all, you could go on forever with policy decisions that the vast majority of the Americans want. And the majority of Americans want the US to give up the veto at the Security Council. Is that something that has, does that have any articulated support in the media, in government? Does Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez even say that she wants that done? Even Rashida Tlaib, does Rashida Tlaib go around saying the U.S. should give up the veto? No. It's if you brought it up in government circles, you kind of be laughed at, But it's this supposedly like lunatic left position is actually the majority of Americans. It just doesn't matter right now. So we have to get control of our own government, and that means people just have to be involved in their local situation, in their local their community, in their state. People have to run for office. I don't know if you guys have to go, please tell me. I can stop talking.
No, let me tell you though, running for office is a whole different animal. And
no, it is. It sounds miserable. I hope I never do it. But
it is. It's kind of miserable.
Have you done this? Yeah.
I've done it twice. And
really? Yeah. It sounds.
Yeah. Well, Peter and I ran 2 campaigns against Debbie Wasserman Schultz down here.
Oh,
yeah. I live in Debbie's district.
Oh, do you really?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. Well,
So
if you live there, you should move, and then you should run a campaign.
I'm working on it. That's why I'm
kidding,
up here.
I'm
I'm on my way.
No, I'm kidding. I'm sure she.
Actually, what's funny is the district that I'm looking to move to is actually Marjorie Taylor Greene's district, and I saw somebody put in, and not because it's her district, that just happens to be where I'm looking to go. And somebody said, would I run against her? Absolutely not. That's a fool's errand. She's in a what district, Peter? Plus 30?
Plus 27, plus 30.
Okay. See, anybody who runs against her is just wasting time and money. That's stupid. That is not strategic.
And especially in the two-party system that we have, where we have 2 wings of because we just have 2 wings of the business party. It's not. But anyway, sorry. I'll just say a story about So a lot of people reach out to me like on Instagram and stuff like that, and about I'm in such despair about this. What can I do? And so most people can't. Like you were saying at the beginning, actually, how this feeling of this shocking level of helplessness while these horrendous crimes are committed largely against children, you just feel like you can't do anything, And so I still remember I had a guy reach out, and he said, my congressman just isn't he won't listen to us and blah, blah, blah. And so I said, oh, have you thought about running against him? Have you thought about primarying him? And he was like, well, I don't think can I run for Congress? And I was like, yeah, man. What do you do? What's your? I forget what his job was, but he was like, and I was like, are you a veteran? He's like, yeah, I did 2 tours in Iraq and 1 in Afghanistan. I was like, dude, Americans love veterans. Americans love voting for veterans. They love electing veterans. They love marching around veterans. They love everything to do with veterans. I'm a VA surgeon. Trust me, I know. Believe me. So he was like, wait, so you're saying I should run for office and lean on the fact that I'm a veteran? I was like, dude, have you never seen a political ad? What? Of course you should do that. And he didn't, unfortunately. But these people have to realize politics has been turned into a dirty word, because it largely is. But politics doesn't have to just be yelling about trans rights or all sorts of there's just the nonsense that goes on in the public sphere today. Politics is about whether or not you are dropping bombs on children right now. Politics is about, and it goes from that to, do you have a street light at the corner so kids can cross it without getting hit by a car on the way to school? It's not. These are just the decisions. Not every decision can be made by a business or a marketplace or whatever term you want to come up with. Some decisions just require us to sit down and talk to each other. And yeah, it's uncomfortable. We'd all rather be on Facebook or whatever. But it's the fact of the matter. If we want to have a decent society, we have to get together and actually build one, because, you got to also remember, a lot of people died to get us that society. We have been, you guys, again, I'm sure the history better than I do. There are, the United States, just the labor history of the United States alone is shockingly violent. And I don't mean the labor people doing the violence. I mean the government doing the violence against the laborers. You know, like the first there's a history of the American Army. I can't remember what it's called now, but the like kind of between the conquering of California and the Civil War. There's I forget the name of it, but the guy who wrote it, I think he's a colonel or a general or something. But the guy who wrote it has a line in there where he says and he doesn't disapprove of this at all. He just states it as a fact. The main job of the American Army, but prior to the Civil War, was felling Indians and American workers. You know, that's correct. That's exactly what they were doing. You know, there would be a strike at a mine. The striking miners finally say, no, we're not even going to let you let scabs go into the mine. Well, fine. The National Guard shows up and just machine guns them. That's what the U.S. Army used to do. You can kind of see it doesn't, you know, you can see they're not that far away from doing such things right now.
Ironically, you mentioned that because that's how Labor Day came to pass back in 1874 or something like that. And look, I mean, I'm very adamant about who my top commander in chief is by far. It's Teddy Roosevelt. And I always want to remind people that despite the drawbacks to Teddy, he is the first commander in chief in our nation's history that stood on the side of labor against the oligarchs with the railroad strike in 1902. So if you guys are looking for an inflection point in history where things ultimately led to the years of FDR and JFK, and then of course that was temporary, and now we're back to where we started.
Right.
But that was definitely a point in history where I would say we did have somebody who did carry a big stick, was a leader who was not afraid to go to war, but that's also because he was willing to die for his cause. You know, unlike a lot of others, he actually was willing to go into battle. But when it came to the domestic policies in particular, of the working class in this country, we had somebody that actually cared. We have flipped it so far in the other direction today that I think the average citizen knows that their country hates them. And it's because we are just seen as numbers on a spreadsheet. How many people could we kill and get away with by not giving them health care? How many people can we get away with keeping down without giving them a jobs program that makes sense? How many people can we convince that they still need to join the military and go over and kill innocent people all over the world? I think we're reaching that breaking point now. And I also think we're reaching it because a significant portion of the MAGA movement is done with the forever wars. That was one of the huge, I think, attractive components to Trump's ideology that he espoused. But in terms of action, it's completely different. And we're seeing that sea change that's happening now. So when you first came on, and this brings the whole conversation full circle, you said that you're optimistic. Well, the truth is the night is always darkest before the dawn. And there is no question it is very dark right now. But I do believe that there will be light in the not too distant future. And if actions like yours continue, I can't hear you, Jen. You're muted, Jen.
It's actually good. I was like, I'm like, there will be light, Peter. There will be light because we're going to set shit on fire. So the light that we're going to see is not going to be like, you know, our leadership and our government all of a sudden feeling benevolent and trying to narrow our inequality gap. That is never going to happen. And we cannot vote our way out of this.
No.
We just can't.
However, what I will say, though, if you are thinking about getting involved in electoral politics, now is as good a time as any if you are so inclined, especially being in Stockton. I mean, we both believe that Butch Ware is going to have an impact in the Green Party as candidate for governor of California. He is just that good of a candidate. I don't think people will necessarily give a shit what his party is. And thankfully, in California, you have the jungle primary system where it's just the top two. The party is kind of irrelevant. We saw the success of, if you're not familiar with Kenneth Mejia, he was a Green Party candidate that had a lot of success running for Congress in Los Angeles, and he ultimately became the city comptroller. He got a very powerful position as a Green Party member. So if it's going to happen anywhere, it's going to happen in California. And so if you have that itch, I would think helping Butch Ware in whatever capacity you can, especially against Zionist Katie Porter, that would definitely be an interesting path to take. If you have that itch that you feel that you have to scratch, helping out Butch Ware would definitely be something worth considering.
Yeah, I would say that for the reason that's the biggest one right now in terms of the ability to really have an impact is, let's say that someone like him was the governor of the fourth or fifth largest economy in the world, right? California is massive.
Right.
And can you imagine if California divested from Israel?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, so the level at which the governor's seat would be in like what we're in the candidates that are running right now, what we're looking, the highest ranking person that would be able to make an impact on what's going on with the Zio state and really take a stand versus just somebody running for Congress.
Yeah. Yeah. No, absolutely. And like, you know, you said like, you know, we're not going to vote our way out of this. That I totally agree. In other words, but I think it's important to, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I think the way I understand that, that statement and that sentiment is that there's more to do than just voting. In other words, like don't just give up on voting. There are some candidates that are better than others, maybe not by much even, but a little bit.
It's the bare minimum. Voting is
exactly. Yes, exactly. And totally insufficient. Totally insufficient. We need new candidates. We need new ways of thinking. We need new ways of doing things. And none of the, and I say new, but it's like we don't have to go like invent physics, right? All of this has been done before.
Yes.
We used to have serious political parties in the United States. We didn't always just have two wings of the business party, like we have now. We used to have, we used to have participatory media. We used to have media that was labor based. There was also corporate media, always, of course, not always, but since recently. But labor used to have its. There's all sorts of things that since kind of like the Trilateral Commission time, since the 1960s, have really been beaten back. Churches didn't always used to be places where you only got ludicrous indoctrination. Synagogues didn't used to always be places where you, like, et cetera, et cetera. There are all of these places. And again, when we talk about like part of the problem is that we don't have a democratic society. That doesn't just mean the government is undemocratic. Like right now, your workplace is undemocratic. Your church is undemocratic. The federal government, sure, but also the state and local governments are fairly undemocratic. Your university is I've been scheduled to speak at any number of universities, where the talk has just been canceled at the last minute because someone complained about something or some administrator found out about it, so they decided to cancel it. And no big deal. Finally, we went to the bookstore down the street. Not a big deal. But like, these are like if you were to poll people at Harvard or any other institution, any other university, how many of them would think that students should be suspended for or expelled for protesting genocide? Approximately zero. Approximately zero. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Like it's completely absurd.
It's man-made. It's a Zionist-made problem, and I've said this repeatedly. Every time
it's an American-made problem. It's an American-made problem. It's just like right now it's in the service of Israel's attack on Gaza.
Right.
But that's because Israel is such a deeply ingrained part of the American system in the Middle East. And yes, it's true that like people like Bill Ackman exist. And there's that Jewish supremacist element to it. I totally agree with you on that.
Yes.
But we like it's kind of like after 9/11, right? We passed the Patriot Act. Well, okay, so did Al Qaeda take our rights away, or did we? No, we took our own rights away. Al Qaeda had nothing to do with it. Al Qaeda didn't vote in the Senate. Like, what is everyone talking about? No, we under our the Senate, the Congress, and the Bush administration, the Bush II administration, they're the ones that took our rights away. And the same thing here. Like our universities are taking their own people's rights away, and they're doing that themselves. Yes, there's external pressures. There's no doubt about that. And Bill, we're seeing right now, the federal government can Harvard right now is standing up to the federal government. You're telling me they can't stand up to Bill Ackman? No, that's pathetic. They wanted to cave into what he was doing. They absolutely wanted someone to come in and save them from this so that they can continue to have their high-tech contracts with Microsoft and whoever else. They can continue to have their investments in Israel and not just Israel, but like the U.S.-Israeli war machine. They wanted this. They were like, oh, thank God Bill Ackman is here to threaten us so we can pretend that we have no choice. No, seriously, I mean, that's what it was. These people, like universities are quite fiercely independent. And all of a sudden, one billionaire is like, okay, there's a lot of other billionaires that Harvard could have gone to, right? They all went there. Like they all have their MBAs from Harvard, right? So they could have all gone. They could have very easily made up funding gaps, but that's what it is. But again,
Where
if
did
people
you go
get
to med
control of their
school, Dr. Sidhwa? Where did you go to med school? I'm sorry.
med school was University of Texas in San Antonio, and my MPH was at Harvard.
Wait. Really? My husband went to UTSA, and
really?
he went to Indiana University for med school, but he did his residency. We lived in San Antonio for 6 years. He did residency at UTSA. I was there from 97 to 2003.
Rock on.
Yeah, isn't that weird? Like we lived off of
funny.
Days of Allah. Remember?
Yeah.
Isn't that funny? That's
awesome.
kind of random. And he used to always, when he was a resident, they would always have the med students. So he would have been you're way younger, but when you did your urology rotation, that would have been him.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Doc, we can't thank you enough for coming on this evening. I assume you will come back. We are going to continue to have these conversations so long as they are necessary, which they are.
Are you going back to Gaza is the question.
Yeah.
No, yeah, I'm supposed to go back in November. I'm scheduled to go back in November. You probably know that about half of medical entries are denied.
And then you can't bring anything in, right?
You can't take anything with you. No, it's kind of a shocking thing that's allowed. But but no, you're not allowed to take anything in with you.
Right, because doctors could be dangerous in the way they want to help people and stuff.
Yeah, the idea is to not save lives. Well, let's not.
This is my husband, by the way, who just piped in and said, "Funny that you went to med school at UTSA." That's my husband, Jason.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's not even just medical. I kind of always say that medical care and a university education are the top tier things in society, right? If you've got those things, your society is awesome. If you've got clean water and secondary education, like high school, then your society is pretty good. If you have a sewage system and a place to live indoors, then you have a society, right? That's baseline. Even that lowest level in Gaza is gone. You know what I mean? Literally the sewage system has been destroyed. 70-80% of the housing has been destroyed. Any building that's still standing looks like it would fall if you just pushed it over, so these are so it's kind of funny because people say, you can't even take anything in. And I'm like, yeah, you can't. But at the same time, providing medical care. I hate saying this because I don't mean it to be overly dramatic or offensive, but providing medical care, the problem with a Nazi concentration camp was not that there aren't enough doctors providing medical care. It's that the people are being concentrated there and they're being allowed to die of disease and they're not being fed enough. That's the problem, and that's the problem with Gaza. Yeah, I can go there. I go there and I do doctor stuff because I'm a doctor, but even if I could take in all the supplies I want, it doesn't solve the problem of the fact that people are being starved to death,
That's why we have to keep speaking truth to power, brother. Yeah. Can't thank you enough for coming on. Keep doing what you're doing.
Based? Why is it daytime where you are?
Oh, I'm in California.
Oh, okay. All right. I was just curious.
Anywho, thank you again. Guys, if you are not currently following Dr. Sidhwa on social media, please make sure that you do. Please check out his work on his website. Doc, thank you again, and we will definitely be talking again real soon.
Happy to.
It was an honor. It was an honor, Dr. Sidhwa. Thank you.
It's an honor to talk to you guys. Thanks, guys.
Have a good one.
Peace,
Bye.
brother.
See you then.
Okay,
great guy, and obviously even greater
lovely.
story.
Yes.
Yeah, very special person. And
Rachel.
I can't even imagine what Rachel's doing. But here's the website.
She's doing Hercules.
And follow that on social media. And if you guys enjoy these conversations, which it appears that you do, because our crowd is very consistent. We are small but mighty, but certainly bigger than we were before. Make sure you go over to patreon.com/revolutionary change for as little as $5 a month. You can become a supporter of our small but mighty and growing channel. And of course, we have had some additional super chats, which is always great. So we got to give a shout out to our people. Alex M., thank you for the $4.99. There's a guy who used to be a partner at my dad's law firm who's a massive Zio, moved down to Miami recently.
That's the place.
Yaris.
That's where he belongs.
That's where he's accepted.
I want all the Zios and the Israelis to move to South Florida. That's what I want.
Little Israel. That's what it's going to become. It's Little Israel.
And then when it's underwater and it sinks under everything south of Lake Okeechobee, that will be the end. Yes, please. If you're a Zio or Israeli, please move to South Florida. I'm leaving, so you can have at it. And yeah, you'll be the last people holding that real estate and no one will buy it from you. That'll be a problem.
Jim Taleb, thank you so much for the $2 super sticker. I don't recognize the name. Maybe you are new. If you are, thank you so much for being here. Alex M. with the $1.99. He'll have Ali Velsh's job soon at MSNBC.
He's talking about Pakman.
I think you're talking about Pakman. Honestly,
yes,
Pakman, here's the reason why Pakman is never making it to national television. Number one, he has been desperately trying to get on national TV for a very long time, and he has no fucking personality. When you have no personality, you can't be on national TV. It's just the way it is. He offers nothing. He doesn't have that capability. Say what you want about a lot of the people that are on TV. They actually know how to carry a show. And that, at least, I can give them. Joyanne Reed, she could carry a show. I don't like her. She could carry a show. Sean Hannity, I don't like him. He can carry a show. David Pakman cannot carry a show. $1.99 again from Alex M. Devil, Wasserman, Schultz. That's another one. We will accept that. There's many different, nicknames, if you will, that are more than appropriate to describe the devil herself. But we'll accept that one. That's a good one. Piano Man, a pleasure as always. Thank you for the $10 super sticker. Very generous of you and really appreciate it. Kenman with the $2.79 Canadian A again. Atlantic says 80% of American Jews are Zionist. Jen, do you refute that?
I don't know that. I don't know that. And I don't know. I would need to see who they interview. I would need to see the study of that or the poll, because I also don't know. Are you talking about Ashkenazi Jews only? Are you talking about I don't know who they polled for that. I don't think it's that high. And I definitely don't think it's that high now. Because if you're at 82% of Israelis are sort of on board with what's going on, I just don't see the number here.
Anything's possible. Jen, you froze again. Tony D, thank you so much for being a 20-month member on YouTube. Much obliged. Will the Epstein files truth come out finally? We are going to get to that shortly. Listen, they're getting close to having the votes. Thomas Massie obviously is a modern-day folk hero in many ways. We'll see if they actually can follow through on it. It'll be very interesting. They certainly are close on those votes. Tony D with the $5. The only good thing Bill Clinton did is reunited the band Fleetwood Mac. Hey, at least you found something good that I did while I was president. So there you go. And a $2 again from Tony D. Starving children is so evil. Shame on the Zios. Shame is not the word that best describes them. It's actually a lot worse than that, but I will bite my tongue. So we had a main story that we had to address with you guys tonight. And so with that said, we have obviously been following the story pretty closely. I don't know how closely you guys have been paying attention to it, but as Jen points out, there is somewhat of an infestation that has been going on in South Florida with the Zionazis. It appears now that they are primed, if you will, because Jen has been speaking loudly about the fact that as things get worse, which they are, a lot of the Zionazis with ways and means are going to be leaving Israel or the real state of Palestine. And where are they going? They are going to Cyprus from the cradle. Settlements in all but name. Cyprus on alert over high influx of Israeli citizens.
My heart goes out to you, Cyprus. I'm so sorry that that's happening to you, but you have to. Why is your government allowing them to buy this much land?
Israelis have acquired nearly 4,000 properties across Cyprus since 2021, with many being transformed into nearly inaccessible gated communities. So what a shock. They end up in Cyprus and they are immediately going to their tried and true tactics. We are going to take over the community. We will make it our own and you can get the fuck out. And that's basically what they're doing. And this is just the beginning. This will get worse. Scroll down, please. There's those trusty guys. The opposition in Cyprus has recently warned that Israel is establishing a backyard in the EU island nation in response to increasing property acquisitions in the country by Israeli investors. The warning resulted in a diplomatic storm, with both Cypriot and Israeli officials condemning the opposition's warning as anti-Semitic. Jen, would you care to comment? Are you too busy?
I am. Well, I just know that this is a major problem. They are looking to create a Zionist state in Cyprus. Like, they're figuring, okay, it's a little too violent here. We fucked around and found out, and now it's just too violent, and we're not comfortable, so we'll just relocate. So again, I feel very horrible for the Cypriots. Cypriots.
I think that's probably the way you could describe it.
It's a strange word, but I think they go by Cypriots. But I think it's horrible. But they have to be fighting their own government to stop allowing this many Israelis to be buying land. Like, we couldn't go buy land in China. They don't allow it, but yet they buy land here left and right. Because our government doesn't protect. Right. But so this is a Cyprus problem. Why is Cyprus allowing all these Israelis to purchase land there? That's a problem.
Yeah, and I just have to say to any of the open border people, the people who think that, oh, you're wrong about China, let me assure you, the world is not peaches and cream, okay? It really isn't. And we only make it worse. We make it easier for people to hate us around the world. So the first people to blame is our government. But we should not be surprised that other powerful nations led by China are looking and going to seize their opportunity to knock us off our perch. That's how it is. And they don't even have to fire a shot. That's what's even more amazing about what China's doing. Rather than compete with them economically, especially when it comes to infrastructure like high-speed rail, we would rather just do different types of tech wars with them, because that's going to solve the problem. No, we have a leadership, if you want to call it that, of individuals in this country who are just drunk on money and power, and it's going to be our downfall. That's what's going to happen. And Israel is at the center of it all. So Israeli buyers are purchasing significant land parcels and strategic economic assets. Spokesperson for the Progressive Party of Working People, Akel Stefanou, which I believe is Greek, said in June, they are building Zionist schools, synagogues, gated enclaves. Israel is preparing a backyard in Cyprus, and this cannot but sound the alarm for us.
Oh, yes, it should.
Israeli newspapers speak of a targeted policy of expansion of Israel in Cyprus. We do not say that out of xenophobia or anti-Semitism, stressing that Israel is occupying us. He noted that Israel has bought large quantities of land and is establishing gated communities predominantly in Larnaca and Limassol. These are not just holiday homes. These are settlements in all but name. Key word there. Specific areas are being bought en masse. This has resulted in closed areas, almost inaccessible to anyone other than Israeli nationals. Jen, do you have any doubt that this is going to turn into a similar Nakba situation like in Gaza?
The only reason think about it this way. Cyprus is essentially half Turkish and half Greek, right? Like, in terms of the people that live there. So you've got two different groups of people that have their own countries that are supportive. So I don't think that that's going to be the same thing. I just don't. Because the Palestinians didn't have a country. That's the whole point. The Palestinians don't have a passport. They don't have a nationality. They're not even allowed to exist as a people. But the people on Cyprus are Turks and Greeks. And I just don't think that that is the same level of vulnerability that you have with Palestinians.
He warned that at some point we'll discover our own land doesn't belong to us. Well, apparently his thought is my thought. So, adding that Cyprus would become a satellite enclave for Israel. 100%. But then again, our intention is to make sure Israel doesn't stand in the near future. These land acquisitions are being carried out through what is referred to as a golden visa, a residency by investment scheme. What did I say? What did I say earlier before we even got into this conversation? That they are just going to bribe their way into power in this country. that allows non-EU nationals to acquire a residency by investing in property. So Cyprus's own government is selling out their people because Israel is willing to give them billions of dollars. That's how this works. And where does that money come from, guys? Our money goes to Israel, and Israel spends our money in other places like Cyprus. So we're paying for it in many ways. Cyprus has issued thousands of these visas with little oversight. Other EU nations, again, this is unbelievable. What the fuck is the point of the EU if they're allowing this to happen? What is the point of the UN if we cannot be blocked as a result? Including Spain, have restricted land sales to non-EU nationals. Cypriot media outlets, including Politis and Cyprus Mail, have recently published investigative reports about these gated communities and political pressure to crack down on the abuse of the golden visa, particularly by Acknowledgments. Between 2021 and 2025, Israelis have purchased over 1,400 properties in Larnaca, over 1,100 in Limassol, and more than 1,200 in Paphos, often located near ports, resorts, and strategic sites such as army bases. So what does that mean, ladies and gentlemen? It means they're buying up the most exclusive real estate on the entire country. In total, almost 4,000 Israeli-linked properties have been acquired across southern Cyprus since 2021.
Oh my God.
Again, it's just starting. Israelis tend to buy large land parcels featuring spas and resorts, gated communities, so to speak. Pila has become their unofficial hub.
My heart goes out to you, Cyprus. I am so sorry that this is happening to you, that you're being infested.
Between 2018 and 2025, the number of Israelis residing in Cyprus has surged from 6,500 to 15,000. Again, like they're like, you know, they are what they are. I don't want to use the R word, but that is kind of what they are. It's just an infestation. And
it is absolutely and trust me, when you're living somewhere where they're coming, it feels and sounds like an infestation.
15,000 will be.
You're so entitled. They're so entitled.
15,000 becomes 50,000 before you blink an eye. Israeli newspaper Haaretz recently reported that Israel's Mossad intelligence agency was active in Cyprus and was using it for safe house operations. Of course they were.
But see, this is then the problem is that apparently Cyprus is on our payroll. Whatever that looks like, and I don't know enough about the government of Cyprus. I really don't. It's not something I ever looked into.
No, but it's interesting because Cyprus is the country that sided with Russia against Ukraine. So it is.
But apparently they're on the payroll now.
Now they are. Now they got their mind right is what ended up happening. Yanet also noted how Israelis were storming the real estate market. The real estate market in Cyprus. Hebrew media has monitored the growing trend of Israeli land acquisition in Cyprus over the past couple of years. You can imagine the type of commercials they must be putting out there. Haaretz reported in August of 23, so this was even before the October 7th. It's almost like these things were planned in advance. You know what I mean, Jen?
They were.
Seems that way. That Israelis were buying anything in sight in the island nation, calling it the Second Israel. During the recent war with Iran, scores of Israelis made their way to Cyprus on boats to escape from ballistic missile strikes. The warnings of the Cypriot opposition caused an uproar. Israel's ambassador to Cyprus, Oren Anolik, with deep concern, we observe and condemn the emergence of uncharacteristic anti-Semitic rhetoric in Cyprus.
They don't want you there? God.
They don't want you anywhere.
It's not caucasity, it's Zionisty or whatever, but like the entitlement of these people knows no bounds. These people are infesting an entire other country, and that country dares to say, we'd rather not be infested, and now they're anti-Semitic. No, they don't not like you because they're Jews. They dislike you because you're garbage. I don't know how, it has nothing to do with being Jewish. It's your garbage.
Rhetoric that, under the guise of political concern, revives dark patterns from the past, collective blame, conspiracy theories, and vile scapegoating. Politicians from some of Cyprus's centrist parties also condemned Stefano's comments. Of course, the centrists did. Remember, scratch a liberal and your fascist bleeds. Isn't that how it works? The Cypriot government has not issued an official comment on the matter. However, an official from Cyprus's foreign ministry told Cyprus Mail that Nicosia was monitoring the discourse and considered a parliamentary debate on hate speech, of course, on hate speech.
Because not wanting them there is hateful. These are the most hateful people on the friggin' planet. Nobody wants you.
Every accusation.
If you're an Israeli, nobody wants you. Sorry, they just don't.
Akel rejected the anti-Semitism accusations, saying it opposes all forms of misanthropy and that its criticism targets government policies, not Jewish identity. Stefano accused the Israeli ambassador of trying to muzzle legitimate debate. Cyprus hosts the Akrotiri base, a major British army, of course, because if it's not us, it's the Brits, army facility, which has been used by Israel for reconnaissance missions over Gaza. So, of course, they are using Cyprus to commit more genocide. Israel and Cyprus have intensified their military cooperation in recent years as part of joint declarations since 2017. They also carried out several joint military and naval exercises. Cyprus also maintains close defense ties with the United States.
Thank you, Ron McKinnon. So it's Cypriot.
Cypriot.
Not Cypriot. It's Cypriot.
Thank you for the correction. I appreciate it.
Yes, we're all Cypriots now. And I got it. Well, I've been living that. I've lived that, the Israeli invasion, my whole life. So I truly feel for them. I truly feel for them. Like, I can't even go into my Pilates studio without like having my skin crawl from hearing the Hebrew.
Now, if you want to know why, it is vital that we bring attention to this abroad, but also at home. This is why we were very fortunate to have Anthony Aguilar as a guest on our podcast.
Another hero. We keep getting some seriously courageous, badass people. That's the truth. These are people these are revolutionaries. See, I know that Dr. Sidhwa wouldn't necessarily deem himself a revolutionary, but he is.
In his own way.
You go there now with no supplies and you're calm and collected and trying to help people. Yeah, that's pretty revolutionary, man.
I agree. Here's what happened on Tuesday. I think it was Tuesday.
States government is complicit in genocide. You have an obligation to the Constitution of the United States. I'm a disabled veteran.
There's a genocide! There's a genocide!
You are all complicit in genocide.
What I always find interesting, and if you look in on this liberal shitbag sitting right there with his,
his satchel and his sweater, satchel.
And his Foster Grant glasses and his
pie. He's so disinterested.
Cashmere sweater.
And this disabled veteran, who is one of the most honorable people, is standing there and he just has nothing to say. That's a beta right there.
Colin, can you zoom in on this guy? Can you zoom in on him?
He can't zoom. How can he zoom?
No, unfortunately.
I want you all to understand that this guy who's sitting here with his head down, staring at his phone, who clearly is of, let's just say, a comfortable life. He lives a comfortable life. This is who sends people like Anthony Aguilar off to die. That's who does it. It's guys that look like him. Guys that would never be able to defend themselves in a fist fight, much less have to put their lives on the line to actually defend this country. This is who we die for, guys. We die for shitheads like this.
Look what they do to Anthony Aguilar. They drag him out.
You're complicit in a genocide! You're complicit in a genocide! Eddie, there's a genocide! Eddie, there's a genocide!
Look what they do to our veterans.
There's a genocide!
This is infuriating to me. do I have a rager meter yet? I don't know if I have a rager meter. I don't know.
He is, and he is arresting a woman who knows him.
Sorry. Anywho, yeah.
It's true. And that's why it's got to be tough for him, because he probably doesn't want to do this, but he's told, hey, got to do it. It's the way it is.
You are complicit in genocide of the Palestinian people. You are complicit. Come on, Eddie. Eddie, help us.
I don't know who she is, but she's awesome.
You guys remember this lady's name? Because I think I follow her on Instagram. I'm not remembering it at the moment.
Right.
She's good people. We'll see. It's terrible.
Israeli terrorists are committing a genocide, and the U.S. Congress and Senate are complicit in funding the bombs that are forcing children to be slaughtered and massacred. Shame on this government. The United States of America is complicit in genocide. The Israeli terrorists are starving children.
If they'll arrest veterans, they'll arrest you.
Stop the bombs! Stop the bombs! Stop! Shame on you! You're complicit! This is your legacy! This is your legacy! Why are they arresting you?
They're arresting us for speaking out against genocide.
Stop the bombs!
The U.S.
Stop
Congress
the bombs!
is paying for the
Stop
death of children,
slaughtering babies!
women and children.
Stop slaughtering babies!
Her name is Josephine Guilbeault, I guess is how you say it. Yeah, I would have her on in a heartbeat. Absolutely. Why not?
Yeah. And somebody says to have Steve from Hill Palestine. We did have him on, Bianca. We interviewed him a little while ago. Yeah, he's amazing also.
So when we say that we are deeply concerned about what's happening in Cyprus, this is yet another reason why. Because they're already looking for their escape plan. They're already looking for a way out of justice. This is what the Nazis did. They escaped to Argentina. They escaped to Uruguay. This is what happens. And the same thing's going to repeat itself all over again. They are going to find their way to Cyprus, and they are going to build their next, it was a shunda.
It's a shunda.
But that's why. And on the domestic side, you know, sometimes your heroes come in different ways, especially when it comes to political ideology. There is no more courageous federally elected representative in the nation today than Thomas Massie. I don't think anybody would argue that. And unlike Marjorie Taylor Greene, Thomas Massie does not participate in insider trading. Sorry, Marjorie, but you're guilty. But Thomas Massie, who is pursuing the Epstein case like no one else. Talk about putting yourself in harm's way. But honestly, as we have discussed, clearly something clicked in him after his wife passed on. And he has just been on this mission for justice ever since then. And so this was an ad that was done on Thomas Massie's behalf.
Be honest with the American people about what's going on here. This is political theater.
No, I don't think Thomas Massie understands government. I think he's a grandstander, frankly.
The president's consultants have spent $1.8 million against me.
What he promised us was we would put America first.
Most Democrats are just fine with this kind of totalitarian state.
Yes, they are. They love it. They're not fighting. Remember, the Democratic establishment's theory, especially this moron who thinks he's going to be president of the United States, is simply this.
Good luck to you, Gavin. Good luck to you.
Their attitude is, we don't have to do anything. We just have to let this country sink even further into hell, and by default, they will vote us back in. We don't have to actually help anybody. We just have to make the Republicans look as bad as possible, and by accident, we will win. That is the mindset of the Democratic Party, especially when it comes to Epstein and especially when it comes to Israel. They don't care. Just like we see when people actually care about the issue when it isn't on the side of the Democrats in power. If the Democrats were in power right now, you better believe that the shoe would be on the other foot. But of course, all of the MAGA people out there that do this for a living would be screaming at the top of their lungs that Harris was hiding things from the American people. So, like we said, red team, blue team, bullshit. it must die. And at least somebody like Thomas Massie gets that.
Totalitarian state that the bureaucrats are pushing on us. But Republicans at least pretend to be against these things.
Are you still talking about Jeffrey Epstein?
This is not going away. How many agents or assets of the federal government were present on January 6th?
We are going to the Capitol.
The American public isn't buying it.
We're knocking out bump stocks.
What he's showing us here is not a bump stock. And I would hope that we've learned something from the COVID experience, that some of our science projects aren't the best ideas.
I recommend take the vaccines. I did it. It's good.
I totally did it. It was a really great idea. We totally saved America. Fauci's a really terrible, but a really great guy.
If you look at my colleagues' feeds now, they all look the same.
There it is.
Can you just let it play? Can you just let it play?
Everybody but me has an AIPAC person. It sets up a fake fight that we all know here is fake. The compromise has already been reached in a smoke-filled back room here.
You don't have anything over on me. Like, you could literally take everything I've got and I can create it again.
I refuse to be a thespian in this failure theater.
I don't know what that means. What's, like, I like it, but I don't know what he's like. What's the ask?
Well, he is running for re-election to Congress, and my guess is he will probably run for president. That's my guess. If he wins re-election,
I don't see. Well, so you're thinking he's going to challenge J.D. Vance?
Yes, absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And he'll be viable. He will.
Well, yes, it is Massie as fuck, and I think that's awesome. Yeah, I mean, well, and I've said it before, we are not having another Democratic president in this country. It's not happening. Their numbers won't support it. They don't stand for anything. And no matter how bad the Republicans are, the Democrats aren't offering anything better. And people see it, and they don't have the numbers anymore. Their numbers are down, not just in places where you'd expect it, but in all the swing states. They will not be able to elect another president. So we're looking at J.D. Vance unless somebody stops that. So
yeah, I don't remember where exactly it was in the ad. I think it was Pfizer was a good one too. But this is who our government answers to, guys. This is I know that there was also one for AIPAC. That's, as they say, this is your God. And it's true. Yep, there it is.
Yeah, I'd support Thomas Massie for sure. I would.
So here's hoping that we do make a substantial change for the better. It was a great conversation this evening. We do have a couple of more super chats we have to get to before we leave. Kevin Pallotti, thank you so much for the $4.99. Curse you, Starlink. The grievous position you have laid thee upon our beautiful Jen is unacceptable. And a $1.99, Kevin Pallotti, grievous position. Sorry.
Oh my God, you didn't need to pay for your typo. Thank you so much, Kevin. That's so sweet. And yes, I do think so. Curses. But in reality, even though it's been a little bit choppy, it's still better than it was when I did it from here without it. Okay. And there is no Wi-Fi here. So it was still better. And so that's that.
I'll see about potentially having a guest on Saturday. It does appear that Jordan Chariton from Status Quo News, John Farina's, his cameraman, was able to get a question in with Thomas Massie at the Epstein Files press conference earlier today. Don't see a clip of it, but that's okay. Kudos to them for getting it. If anybody deserves to ask Massie a question, it's definitely them. Look, we're living in interesting times, guys. Things are upside down and inside out, but hang on for the ride. It's going to get interesting. I will see you all on Saturday. We've got some wonderful guests.
I won't.
I wasn't asking you. You can go and have fun in the mountains. I know you will. So smash that like button, share, subscribe, do all those things we ask you to do. I will see you soon. And
free Palestine.
Good night, guys.